Chapter 585. Qizhen Pavilion. This drinking session lasted for an entire day. Yi Fei was prepared to wait for Song Yu's revenge. Finally, the news that Zhang Huzi found out made Yi Fei not know whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that Song Yu had already formed a team and entered the desert before he came. Song Zhong, on the other hand, was slightly slower. He wanted to show off in Quicksand City, so he deliberately lagged behind by a few days. Therefore, after Yi Fei snatched his space ring, even though he was extremely angry, Song Zhong had no choice but to suppress his anger. He also formed a team and entered the desert angrily. The desert of the Northern Region Kingdom was different from other places. Although it was called a desert, it was more like a moving sea of sand. Walking alone in the desert was also a dangerous thing. Yi Fei agreed to Zhang Huzi's request and decided to enter the desert with them in a few days. Before this, besides cultivation, martial artists did not have much entertainment. After drinking, Yi Fei returned to his room and took out Song Zhong's space ring. Then, he unceremoniously erased the spiritual will on it. Clatter! A large amount of treasures poured out of the space ring. The national power of the Northern Region Kingdom is really strong. Even a good-for-nothing prince like Song Zhong actually has so many spirit stones on him. Putting aside some miscellaneous items, Yi Fei found a total of 5,000 low-grade spirit stones in Song Zhong's space ring. Spirit crystals were piled up like a mountain. Other than these two, the rest were elixirs for recovering vital essence and healing injuries. However, there were no top-grade treasures or sacred weapon embryos. There were also no martial arts technique. After thinking for a while, Yi Fei somewhat understood. It seems that the royal family of the Northern Region Kingdom is quite careful. They know that the Forsaken Land is extremely dangerous and martial artists are in danger of losing their lives at any time. Therefore, other than the necessary spirit stones and elixirs, they either did not bring the other treasures or hid them close to their bodies. After all, the martial artists of the Northern Region came to the Forsaken Land with the purpose of finding treasures. Naturally, no one would bring a large amount of treasures with them. However, Yi Fei still felt like he had made a huge profit by obtaining 5,000 spirit stones and millions of spirit crystals. At the very least, he wouldn't have to worry about not having enough spirit crystals to use for the time being. Finally, Yi Fei found an invitation card in a pile of junk. It's actually an invitation from Quicksand City's Qizhen Pavilion. I didn't think that Quicksand City's stone gambling industry had already developed to such a scale. The Qizhen Pavilion is the largest gambling den in Quicksand City. When they learned that Song Yu's little brother had entered the city, they immediately sent an invitation card to Song Zhong. They wanted to use Song Zhong to establish a good relationship with Song Yu. But now I'm the one benefiting. Yi Fei held onto the invitation card and suddenly had a good idea in his heart. If I can find another leaf of the path understanding tree in the stone gambling, my slaughter fist intent will quickly reach the perfection stage. Then, I will truly be an undefeatable martial king. Invincible Martial King was also a dividing line for 10th level martial kings. At the very least, the 4 geniuses in front of Yi Fei were all at the Invincible Martial King realm. Since he had already entered the ranks of the geniuses, Yi Fei naturally didn't want to widen the gap between him and the other 4 geniuses. Looks like I have to go to the Qizhen Pavilion tomorrow, Yi Fei thought to himself. Then, he sat down and began to cultivate. The night passed without a word. The next day, during breakfast, Yi Fei asked Zhang Huzi and the others, "Do you know where the Qizhen Pavilion is?" "Hey, Sword King, are you going to gamble on stones?" "What a coincidence. Last month, I don't know which warrior got lucky and found a treasure in the yellow pit stone. If it weren't for the fact that we don't have any money on us, we would have gone to gamble," Zhang Huzi said enviously. Yi Fei was speechless. He couldn't possibly tell them that he was the one who got lucky. Furthermore, he clearly relied on his strength. Take me there. It's my treat today. Pa. Yi Fei slapped Song Zhong's spatial ring on the table. Zhang Huzi and the other's eyes immediately lit up. Okay, since the Sword King is treating, we'll go with you. After the meal, Zhang Huzi and the others quickly brought Yi Fei to the most luxurious garden in the city. Sword King, this is the Qizhen Pavilion. Yi Fei raised his head and looked at the Qizhen Pavilion. He realized that the interior was divided into two sections. Any warrior outside could enter the outer section and choose ordinary stones. If they wanted better stones, they had to enter the inner section. At the same time, in order to prevent poor warriors from taking advantage of the situation, the Qizhen Pavilion also set a rule that anyone who wanted to enter the inner section had to pay 100,000 spiritual crystals. This amount of money was a drop in the ocean for those talented warriors. However, for Zhang Huzi and the other rogue warriors, it was a huge sum of money. Fortunately, Yi Fei had received Song Zhong's invitation. With the invitation, he could enter for free. Zhang Huzi and the others happily followed Yi Fei into the inner section. As soon as they entered, Zhang Huzi and the others scattered. Their eyes were shining with greed. They couldn't wait to find a rare stone to make a fortune. Only Zhang Huzi stayed by Yi Fei's side and accompanied Yi Fei to choose stones. When he saw Yi Fei touch the stones one by one, Zhang Huzi suddenly had a strange feeling. This idol's hobbies are a bit strange. Hey, that guy looks familiar. Right, he seems to be the last of the 5 great geniuses, the Sword King of the North Sea, Yi Fei. It can't be wrong. He must be the Sword King of the North Sea. The Qizhen Pavilion has only sent invitations to the 4 great geniuses and Song Zhong, Song Yu's brother. Since this guy can come in with an invitation, he must be the Sword King of the North Sea. Every proud son of heaven was in existence that stood at the pinnacle of the Northern Territory's young martial artists. Yi Fei was no exception. Once his identity was exposed, his fame immediately spread throughout the city. At this time, as soon as he entered, he was recognized. Although they recognized Yi Fei, no one came up to greet Yi Fei. Firstly, Yi Fei had only been a great genius for a short time. Many people didn't think highly of Yi Fei. Secondly, the entire Qizhen Pavilion was filled with warriors from Beiyuan, Beihuang, Beichuan, and other places. Especially the martial artists of the Northern Plains Kingdom. When they saw Yi Fei come in, all of them had unconcealable hostility in their eyes. It had to be known that Yi Fei's reputation as a proud son of heaven was completely achieved by stepping on the heads of their Northern Plains Kingdom. At this time, seeing Yi Fei, the martial artists of the Northern Plains Kingdom naturally hated him to the point that the roots of their teeth itched. At the same time that Yi Fei entered the Qizhen Pavilion, in a room inside the Qizhen Pavilion, a manager was reporting the situation outside to a young man. Sir, the situation is like this. The Sword King of the North Sea has stolen Song Zhong's invitation and entered the Qizhen Pavilion. What do you think we should do? What else can we do? The Sword King of the North Sea has been in the limelight recently. He even managed to steal Song Zhong's invitation. My waiting here was not in vain. Don't alarm him. The 5th great genius belongs to me. No one can take it away from me, and I won't let anyone take it away from me. Chapter 586. Heavenly Spirit Pill. At this time, Yi Fei didn't know that there was someone in Quicksand City specifically waiting for him to appear. After entering Qizhen Pavilion, he felt the stones around him and observed the warriors around him. The result was very depressing. Those who could enter the inner court of Qizhen Pavilion should be the most powerful young warriors in Quicksand City. But in this group of warriors, there was no one from Beiyang or Taishan Holy Land. This made Yi Fei very disappointed. Sigh, I didn't feel this way before. Now I know how weak Beiyang and Beiyang are. Yi Fei shook his head and looked away helplessly. He knew that it was basically impossible to meet old friends in Quicksand City. As for Jing Wushou and his fellow disciples, even if they came to Quicksand City, they would have either entered the desert or were still on their way. Rather than looking for a needle in a haystack, he might as well go with the flow. Since he was here, he might as well make the best of it. Xiao Chao, let's get to work, Yi Fei secretly shouted to Xiao Chao in the beastmark when no one was looking. Xiao Chao's voice immediately came from the beastmark. When he took a closer look, Yi Fei almost vomited blood when he discovered that Xiao Chao wasn't working at this time. Instead, she was hiding in the beast mark and sleeping. It seemed that he had to use his trump card. Get up, it's time to eat Tang Hulu. Xiao Chao's eyes widened. He looked outside, but other than the broken stones on the ground, there was no sign of the Tang Hulu. Xiao Chao's face darkened and he looked unhappy. Let's find the treasure first. If we find the treasure, I'll buy all the Tang Hulu in the city for you, Yi Fei promised. Only then did Xiao Chao smile happily and begin to cooperate with Yi Fei to search for treasures. Needless to say, the stones in the inner courtyard of Qizhen Pavilion were very valuable. After touching 3 stones, Xiao Chao actually found spiritual energy fluctuations in 2 of them. Yi Fei took the 2 stones without hesitation. He kept one for himself and gave the other to Zhang Huzi. Idle you are. Zhang Huzi was surprised. Don't call me an idol. You're older than me. You can call me Yi Fei and I'll call you Big Brother Zhang. Take this stone as a gift from me. Since he said he would treat, Yi Fei naturally wouldn't be stingy. Yi Fei was one of the 5 geniuses, but he was still so approachable. Zhang Huzi was moved to tears. In the past, when they encountered those powerhouses, low-level martial artists like them could only look up to them or crawl on the ground like ants. For the first time, Zhang Huzi felt respect and equality from Yi Fei's body. Suddenly, Zhang Huzi had an impulse. Just based on Yi Fei's respect, even if he sold his life to Yi Fei, it would be worth it. However, Zhang Huzi didn't say it out loud. He planned to wait until the heaven-forsaken land was over. If he was still alive, he would run to Beihai Pass and join Yi Fei's Sword King residence. That would be a very good thing. Yi Fei also had no idea that his unintentional action had actually recruited the strongest elder of the Yi clan who didn't share the same surname. For a long time to come, it was because of Zhang Huzi's supervision and guidance that the disciples of the family Yi would become stronger and stronger. Zhang Huzi carried the stone with gratitude and walked to the place where the stone was cut. The person in charge of cutting the stone was an old man. He looked old and his eyes were cloudy. However, once he stared at the stone, his eyes became incomparably sharp. Yi Fei knew that this kind of old man wasn't simple. Therefore, he bowed to the old man and said, "Elder, please cut it carefully from the side. The Sword King is too polite." The old man was very surprised. He had been cutting stones here all his life, and had seen countless Heaven's Pride-level experts. However, it was very rare for someone to bow to him like Yi Fei did. Therefore, he couldn't help but become more cordial towards Yi Fei. Oh, the Sword King of the North Sea chose the stone so quickly. It's even the cheapest stone here. Can such a stone be cut into a treasure? In the end, Yi Fei's reputation as one of the 5 great prides of heaven was there for all to see. When they saw that Yi Fei wanted to cut the stones, many of the martial artists subconsciously gathered around him. However, when they saw that Yi Fei had chosen the 2 cheapest stones to cut, many of them were stunned. In their impression, geniuses should have the grandeur of geniuses. They didn't expect Yi Fei to choose the most expensive stones, but he should at least cut a stone that was worth 1,000,000 or so that everyone would think highly of him. Haha, this Sword King of the North Sea is only SOSO. But it's no wonder. The North Sea is the most remote and poor place in our northern domain. I heard that the Sword King of the North Sea started from humble beginnings. That's understandable. The Beiyuan warriors had waited for a long time and finally found a chance to ridicule Yi Fei. At this moment they were all very excited. They were just short of pointing at Yi Fei and calling Yi Fei a country bumpkin and a pauper. Zhang Huzi naturally heard these discussions. He looked nervously at Yi Fei and said, Brother Yi, why don't we exchange for 2 better stones? Why should we exchange? The quality of the stone doesn't depend on its price. We can use a cheap stone and cut out a high-priced treasure. When the time comes, we will naturally smack them in the face. Yi Fei's face was full of confidence. Zhang Huzi was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect Yi Fei to be so open-minded. The old man who was about to cut the stone was also stunned. He couldn't help but look deeply at Yi Fei. The old man didn't speak, but the saber in his hand had already turned into a blur as it danced on the stone. Many of the surrounding warriors also noticed that the old man was in a different state. What's wrong with this old man? He was half dead when he was helping us cut the stone. It's just 2 pieces of trash and he's actually working so hard. Could it be that he has to treat the other party differently just because he's the Sword King of the North Sea, one of the 5 great elites? This old man has a pair of dog eyes. Some of the warriors were furious. But before they could start cursing, the saber shadows that filled the sky suddenly disappeared. The old man excitedly held up a spirit stone the size of a plate and handed it to Yi Fei. He said, The Sword King's eyes are indeed sharp. There's a treasure. It's even a 5-kilogram high-grade spirit stone. What? A high-grade spirit stone? And it's even 5 kilograms? Doesn't that mean that this crappy stone can be cut into 10,000 mid-grade spirit stones? That's equivalent to billions of spirit crystals. A warrior quickly calculated the value. He was so envious that his eyes turned into those of a rabbit. As for the Beiyuan Kingdom warriors who were secretly ridiculing Yi Fei, they were all shocked. Their faces were burning as if they had been slapped a few times. This senior is lucky. This senior's luck is good. The stone material is also a treasure. It's a heaven spirit pill from 10,000 years ago. Consuming 1 pill can increase one's talent to heaven grade 1. Unfortunately, the side effects of this pill are too great. Once consumed, one's talent will never increase again. Senior, please take it with caution. The old man respectfully passed a heaven spirit pill covered in stone chips to Zhang Huzi. Zhang Huzi was a little dizzy. What? Heaven spirit pill? I, Zhang Huzi, have never encountered such a heaven-defying opportunity in my life. Haha, brother Zhang, congratulations. Yi Fei saw that Zhang Huzi was a little absent-minded, so he took the pill and forced it into Zhang Huzi's hand. Brother Yi, I, Zhang Huzi, will never be able to repay this kindness in my life. Zhang Huzi's nose twitched as tears flowed down his face. But no one laughed at Zhang Huzi. Instead, when they saw the heaven spirit pill, many warriors were so jealous that their eyes were about to spit fire. This kind of pill would definitely cause countless warriors with low talent to go crazy. If not for the special relationship between Zhang Huzi and Yi Fei, many people would have the impulse to kill him and steal his treasure. Chapter 587. Shin Tu Ming. The young man who came out was called Shin Tu Ming. He was also the young master of the Qi Zhen Pavilion. Now that he had seen Yi Fei take out a high-grade spirit stone and a heavenly spirit pill from the Qi Zhen Pavilion in one go, how could Shin Tu Ming be happy? But the more unhappy he was, the brighter the smile on Shin Tu Ming's face became. It would definitely attract the screams of many ignorant girls. Clap, 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 clap. As expected of the North Sea Sword Monarch. To be able to take out such treasures from 2 pieces of trash in one go, it was not a waste for me to wait here for you. Shin Tu Ming clapped his hands as if he was sincerely congratulating Yi Fei. Many martial artists recovered from the shock and jealousy they felt when Yi Fei took out a treasure. Then, they immediately recognized the person who was clapping. It's actually one of the top 10 geniuses, Shin Tu-ming. Didn't Shin Tu-ming enter the desert a long time ago? Why hasn't he left yet? Idiot, didn't you hear what Shin Tu-ming said? He stayed behind to wait for the North Sea Sword Monarch. Could it be that he's waiting to befriend Yi Fei? The warriors of Beiyuan country were already angry when they saw Yi Fei take out treasures. Now that Shin Tu-ming, one of the top 10 kings, also came over to curry favor with Yi Fei, they were so angry that their stomachs started to hurt. The crowd of onlookers automatically dispersed and hurriedly made a path for Shin Tu-ming. Yi Fei also looked curiously at the approaching Shin Tu-ming. A trace of surprise flashed across his face. Who is this Shin Tu-ming? I don't know him. Why is he waiting for me? And what's up with the top 10 kings? Don't you know the Sword Monarch? In our northern region, other than the top 5 geniuses, there are also the top 10 kings. They are all people who will become geniuses in the future. Zhang Huzi came back to his senses. Seeing that Yi Fei didn't know about this, he immediately explained in a low voice. For example, Duan Lang and Song Zhong are the last 2 of the top 10 kings. As for Shin Tu-ming, he's the first of the top 10 kings. He's also the most likely candidate to become a genius. Yi Fei nodded. Only now did he understand Shin Tu-ming's background. However, he had never interacted with such a person before. Why would Shin Tu-ming look for him? Are you waiting for me? Yi Fei asked. I'll wait for you. I am Shin Tu-ming, one of the 10 great kings. Originally, I could have become the 5th prodigy this year. Unfortunately, I was one step too late. Brother Yi actually beat me to it. Shin Tu-ming was smiling. His smile was very bright. However, the sunlight was a little dazzling, as if it was done on purpose. This also made Zhang Huzi, who was at the side, secretly worried. He whispered, Sword King, you have to be careful. Shin Tu-ming is famous for being a smiling tiger. If he smiles at someone, it will be detrimental to that person. Against me? I don't think I've offended this Shin Tu-ming. Yi Fei was stunned. Of course, Zhang Huzi would never have thought that his voice transmission to Yi Fei had also violated Shin Tu-ming's taboo. At the same time, he was also trying to test Yi Fei. Shin Tu-ming suddenly smiled at Zhang Huzi and said, Are you the North Sea Sword King's servant or follower? I'm talking to your master. I don't like lowly things to be an eyesore. Boom. Shin Tu-ming's smile became even more intense. However, this smile was like a mountain's pressure, forcing Zhang Huzi to lower his head and kneel down. Shin Tu-ming deliberately used his aura to crush the heavenly spirit pill in Zhang Huzi's hand. After all, if Yi Fei took out a treasure here, it would be a loss for the Qizhen Pavilion. How could Shin Tu-ming tolerate this? Not good. He's coming for my heavenly spirit pill. Zhang Huzi's face was filled with humiliation. He was a 10th level martial king. However, under Shin Tu-ming's aura, he was unable to resist. Not only was he unable to resist, he could only watch as the greatest opportunity of his life was about to disappear. Zhang Huzi was furious, but his heart was also filled with sorrow. This was the bitterness of rogue cultivators like them. They had no backing, no strength. Even if they worked 100 or 1,000 times harder, they would still be ants in front of Shin Tu-ming. If Shin Tu-ming wanted them to kneel, they would kneel no matter how humiliated they were. If Shin Tu-ming wanted to humiliate them, they could only silently endure it. Yi Fei also did not expect Shin Tu-ming to be such a person. He was the classic example of hiding a knife in a smile. He was just joking with you, but he immediately stabbed you in the back. I'm sorry. He's not my subordinate or follower. On the contrary, he's my friend. Don't you think it's too much to treat my friend like this? Yi Fei took a step forward, crushing the mountain-like pressure around him. Sword King. Zhang Huzi's eyes suddenly turned red. He wanted to cry. They were both Sword Kings, but Shin Tu-ming treated him like a servant. However, Yi Fei actually treated him as a friend and stood up for him. For the first time in more than 30 years, Zhang Huzi understood what gratitude was and what true respect was. Brother Zhang, step back first. This person is coming for me. Yi Fei did not turn his head. He only coldly stared at Shen Tu-ming. If you have any grudges, just come at me. It has nothing to do with my friend. You treat him as a friend? Sword King of the Northern Sea, you disappoint me. Since you've become a genius of the northern region, you should have the height of a genius. Those who can be friends with geniuses should at least be sword kings like us. You actually became friends with such a lowly rogue cultivator. I have to say, you really disappoint me. Shen Tu-ming shook his head. He couldn't understand how Yi Fei had managed to become a prodigy. We sword kings and geniuses are all dragons among men. Since ancient times, only dragons can become friends with other dragons. If a dragon becomes friends with an insect, then he's no longer a dragon. He's just like that insect. He's also lowly. Shen Tu-ming's face was full of pride and a smile. That smile also deeply hurt Zhang Huzi's eyes. His face also revealed a look of shame and anger. Sword King, why don't I leave Qizhen Pavilion? Zhang Huzi was very ashamed. He felt that his lowly status had also caused Yi Fei to be humiliated. Therefore, Zhang Huzi turned to leave. In any case, rogue cultivators like them were often humiliated and ridiculed by geniuses. Zhang Huzi was already used to it. For example, at this moment, Zhang Huzi's friends were intimidated by Shen Tu-ming's aura. Although they knew that Shen Tu-ming was humiliating them, none of them dared to refute. This also made Yi Fei sigh. He was angry that Zhang Huzi did not fight back. He would definitely not let Zhang Huzi leave just like that. After all, he was the one who brought Zhang Huzi in. If they were humiliated, then he would be humiliated. Brother Zhang, there's no need to leave. No one can humiliate my friends and leave just like that. Shen Tu-ming, I have to apologize to you. He has to apologize too. Yi Fei stopped Zhang Huzi again. He said very sincerely, no one is born noble, and no one is born lowly. Whoever humiliates me, even if it's an ant, I'll bite a dragon to death. Sword King, Zhang Huzi suddenly choked, but he did not let his tears fall. He could not embarrass Yi Fei. Brother Zhang, don't say anything. A person can be weak, but they can't be without dignity. I'll help you get your dignity back. Chapter 588. A shocking gamble. Shen Tu-ming had indeed succeeded. Yi Fei wouldn't care about the others, but he was the one who brought Zhang Huzi in. Now that Zhang Huzi was being humiliated, he couldn't ignore it. Yi Fei said indifferently, Shen Tu-ming, what are you trying to do? Tell me. No matter what it is, I'll accept it. Great. As expected of the loyal Northern Sea Sword Monarch. Unfortunately, Shen Tu-ming smiled. He was clapping just a moment ago, but in the next moment, he said viciously, unfortunately, you're the same as these rogue cultivators. You're all lowly people. People like you don't deserve to be a prodigy. Boom. Everyone was shocked. Only then did everyone realize that Shen Tu-ming was waiting here not to befriend Yi Fei, but to provoke Yi Fei. Humiliating Zhang Huzi was also part of Shen Tu-ming's plan. He knew that Yi Fei was loyal and wouldn't let his friend be humiliated without standing up for him. This way, no matter what challenge Shen Tu-ming proposed, Yi Fei wouldn't have a reason to refuse. Because if he refused, Yi Fei wouldn't just lose his reputation. As expected of a smiling tiger. Shen Tu-ming's words immediately put the Northern Sea Sword Monarch in a difficult position. Many warriors were afraid of Shen Tu-ming. Haha, so that's how it is. The Northern Sea Sword Monarch is out of luck. Originally, there were rumors that Shen Tu-ming would be promoted to prodigy this year. In the end, Yi Fei came out of nowhere and pushed Shen Tu-ming down. Shen Tu-ming is obviously trying to snatch the position. Some of the knowledgeable warriors could roughly guess Shin Tuming's plan. The warriors of Beiyuan country were even more energized and started cheering for Shin Tuming. If Shin Tuming could pull Yi Fei down from the prodigy position, it would be a heavy blow not only to Yi Fei, but also to Beiyang country. How about it, Northern Sea Sword Monarch? With so many people watching, wouldn't it be too disappointing if we don't make a bet? Shin Tuming didn't disappoint. Seeing that Yi Fei was almost done, the smile on his face suddenly turned cold. What do you want to fight? Yi Fei asked coldly. Only then did he realize how treacherous Shin Tuming was. He actually used Zhang Huzi and the others to force him to accept the challenge. This person was indeed a smiling tiger. Yi Fei had no choice but to accept this challenge. He did not expect to use this battle to change the status of rogue martial artists, but he had to let those self-righteous genius martial artists know. Even the weakest martial artist could not be easily insulted. It's very simple. Since we can't fight in Quicksand City, then let's bet on stones. As for the stakes, we'll bet on your position as the chosen one. Shin Tu-ming revealed a sinister smile. This was the moment he had been waiting for. All the martial artists present were shocked. Although they had vaguely guessed this, no one had expected Shin Tuming to be so direct. The moment he opened his mouth, he wanted to snatch Yi Fei's position as the chosen one. You've done so much just for the sake of the Sky Pride position? Yi Fei was suddenly enraged. Just because of a false reputation, Shin Tuming could freely humiliate others? These high and mighty genius martial artists were simply too much. That's right. Your Heaven's Pride seat. I've won. You must swear to leave Quicksand City immediately and not enter the heaven-forsaken grounds. Of course, your Heaven's Pride seat shall belong to me as well. Shin Tuming's smile was extremely radiant, as though he had Yi Fei in his grasp for sure. He was also confident that as long as he could force Yi Fei to give up his position and lose the opportunity to enter the heaven-forsaken land, then no matter how hard Yi Fei worked in the future, he would be left far behind by the other kings who had entered the heaven-forsaken land. At that time, Yi Fei would not be able to become a chosen one again. It would be a problem for him to survive this blow and become a titled warrior, Wu Jun. On the other hand, he, Shin Tu-ming, could use this opportunity to trample Yi Fei to death and make him unable to rise again. Furthermore, he could use his fame to rise to the ranks of the geniuses. At that time, Fu Renjie, Lin Tianjiao, and Song Yu would all be left far behind in terms of fame. After all, he, Shin Tuming, had once trampled on Yi Fei to become a chosen one. Who in the northern region could compare with him? How about it? Do you dare to accept this bet? Shin Tuming arrogantly took a step closer to Yi Fei. Why wouldn't I dare? Yi Fei could not back down, nor did he want to back down. He could lose to anyone, but he did not want to lose to someone as arrogant as Shin Tuming. Xiao Qiao, are you confident? Although he agreed readily, Yi Fei was actually a little worried. After all, Shin Tuming had come prepared, and he had accepted the challenge hastily. Squeak! Within the beast mark, Xiao Qiao puffed up his cheeks and waved his fists with all his might. He looked as if he wanted to cheer for Yi Fei. Yi Fei was suddenly emboldened. With Xiao Qiao's treasure in his hands, he had nothing to be afraid of. If you want to fight, I will fight. If you lose, I will not be bothered to accept your apology. I will take your spatial ring. Brother Zhang, do you have a problem with that? Yi Fei turned to look at Zhang Huzi. I will listen to the King of Swords. Zhang Huzi was very straightforward. You want to take all the treasures on me? Shin Tuming's expression turned ugly. Everyone knew that the most precious thing on a warrior was their spatial ring. Basically, warriors would habitually store their most valuable treasures in their spatial rings. If he lost, then he, Shin Tuming, one of the 10 great kings, would follow in the footsteps of that idiot Song Zhong and be robbed clean by Yi Fei. Very well, King of Swords of the North Sea, I, Shin Tuming, accept your bet. Shintuming continued to smile, but a cold light flashed in his eyes. Seeing that Yi Fei had agreed to Shintuming's bet so rashly, the old man in charge of the stone cutting suddenly frowned. He was secretly worried for Yi Fei. The warriors present did not know, but the old man who had been in Qizhen Pavilion for many years knew that Shintuming was not only an expert in stone gambling, but also the hidden young master of Qizhen Pavilion. Now Yi Fei wanted to stone gamble with Shintuming in Qizhen Pavilion. No matter how one looked at it, this was a very dangerous thing to do. But in Qizhen Pavilion, the old man had no way of reminding Yi Fei of this matter. Seeing that Yi Fei had taken the bait and agreed to the bet, a cold light flashed in Shintuming's eyes. He glanced at the manager of Qizhen Pavilion. The manager strode over and cupped his hands in a seemingly impartial manner. Since the two young masters want to stone gamble, then Qizhen Pavilion will naturally do its best to help. Men, gather all the top-quality raw materials here for the two young masters to choose from. Yes, sir. A large group of workers immediately gathered the raw materials of Qizhen Pavilion. The manager cupped his hands again. Young masters, who will choose first? Humph, let the one who only knows how to make friends with lowly people choose first. Shintuming had an arrogant look on his face. Since Yi Fei had taken the bait, there was no need for him to be polite. After all, the one who would win this time would be him, Shintuming. This was not because he was the young master of Qizhen Pavilion, but because Shintuming was confident in his own abilities. Forget it, men do not fight with dogs. Let's wait for a certain dog to choose first, then I will choose, Yi Fei said coldly, his body exuding confidence. Chapter 589. A Crushing Defeat. Hearing this, Shintuming was enraged. He was one of the 10 great kings. How could he become a dog in Yi Fei's mouth? How preposterous! Then, Shintuming finally couldn't hold it in and laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, Yi Fei, you're still too stupid. Do you think you can anger me like this? Let me tell you, if you choose first, you still have a slim chance of defeating me. If I choose first. After laughing, Shintuming's body suddenly emitted a chilling coldness. If I choose first, then you'll only be left with despair. All of you, listen up. From now on, his Heaven's Pride position belongs to me, Shintuming. From now on, there will be no more Heaven's Pride from the North Sea, only trash and country bumpkins. Spiritual eye, open for me. As he spoke, Shintuming suddenly closed his eyes. All the true yuan in his body actually gathered at the space between his eyebrows in an instant. Poof! The space between his eyebrows quickly split open and a vertical eye emitting a shocking amount of spiritual qi drilled out. Seeing that vertical eye, Yi Fei suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. The old man in charge of cutting the stone was so shocked that the knife in his hand fell to the ground. Spiritual eye, it's actually a spiritual eye. Old man, what's a spiritual eye? Yi Fei couldn't help but ask. This wasn't just stone gambling, it was related to his and the North Sea's honor. If he won, the North Sea would definitely not be looked down upon. If he lost, it would definitely be a very cruel blow. In the future, the North Sea's position in the North Sea would fall even lower. Sigh, young master, you've miscalculated. You really shouldn't have agreed to this battle. A trace of despair flashed through the old man's turbid eyes. Then, he explained to Yi Fei what a spiritual eye was. It turned out that stone gambling was the same as the Way of Flowers. They were both very special martial arts. Such martial arts had completely declined in the North Sea. Only the middle ground still had some inheritances. The spiritual eye that Shintuming used was a very powerful stone gambling method. This method wasn't a martial art, but it could help warriors continuously discover spiritual qi or treasures hidden in ancient fossils. The more powerful a spirit eye master was, the higher their status in the central continent. They were not inferior to those powerful flower Tao divine hands and alchemy masters. Who would have thought that Shin Tu-ming would actually succeed in cultivating his spiritual eye? Although it's only a primary spiritual eye, he can still discover the spiritual qi contained within the stone. Compared to us who can only observe the shapes and veins, he's more than 100 times more brilliant. The old man sighed and was worried. The surrounding martial artists were also in an uproar. Although many people knew that Shin Tu-ming would definitely have a backup plan when he proposed stone gambling, no one would have thought that Shin Tu-ming would use such a heaven-defying method right from the start. Once he opened his spiritual eye, all the stone materials would be exposed. Wouldn't that mean that Shin Tu-ming only needed to take a look to pick out all the stones with spiritual energy? This way, no matter how he gambled, he would definitely win. Hee, aren't you shocked? This is the effect that the young master wants. After this incident, the young master's name will definitely shake the entire northern region and surpass all the other geniuses. A few managers of the Qijin Pavilion stood together with a sly and proud smile on their faces. Shin Tu-ming was the young master of the Qijin Pavilion. Of course, they would secretly help Shin Tu-ming. No one would have thought that among this pile of high-grade stones, one of them was the most valuable treasure of the Qijin Pavilion. It was priceless. With Shin Tu-ming's spiritual eye, it would be easy for him to find this stone. When that time came, even if Yi Fei cut all the high-grade stones apart, he would still not be a match for this most valuable treasure of the Qijin Pavilion. Haha, I've already chosen. I'll take this one. Shin Tu-ming opened his spiritual eye. As expected, he quickly found this most valuable treasure of the Qijin Pavilion. There was even a special mark on it. Other than his spiritual eye, no one else would be able to find it. Knowing that these managers were secretly helping him, Shin Tu-ming was very satisfied. Without any hesitation, he chose this stone. Then, he opened his eyes and looked at Yi Fei provocatively. Yi Fei, it's not too late for you to admit defeat. As long as you swear to leave Quicksand City and never take a step into the heaven-forsaken land, I won't make things difficult for you. In the end, Yi Fei was a fierce person who could kill Duan Lang. Shin Tu-ming was also afraid that if he humiliated Yi Fei too much, he would force Yi Fei to do something desperate. That wouldn't be good. Sword King, it's all my fault. I've implicated you. Zhang Huzi suddenly slapped himself fiercely. His heart was filled with self-blame and despair. The warriors present also looked at Yi Fei with strange expressions. Some were sympathetic, while some were gloating. After all, everyone had seen Shin Tu-ming's spiritual eye with their own eyes. This was a great weapon of stone gambling. Since Shin Tu-ming had made the first move, he must have already chosen the best stone here. Even if he hadn't cut it yet, victory and defeat were already clear. Ai, what a pity. Even if the North Sea Sword King has a spiritual eye now, he's still not Shin Tu-ming's match. Yeah, who would have thought that a proud son of heaven would fall before he could even rise? Seeing Yi Fei not speak, many warriors were already secretly shaking their heads. They thought that Yi Fei couldn't take such a blow and was too scared to speak. In the northern domain, every time the heaven-forsaken land opened, it was the greatest opportunity for the northern domain warriors. Anyone who entered and came out would have their strength increased by at least 10 times. Once Yi Fei couldn't enter the heaven-forsaken land, even if he had the title of a proud son of heaven. Once Fu Renjie, Lin Tianjiao, Shin Tu-ming, and the others came out, their strength would increase greatly. Yi Fei would naturally be left far behind, unable to stand shoulder to shoulder with these proud sons of heaven. This was also the reason why Shin Tu-ming tried his best to stop Yi Fei from entering the heaven-forsaken land. Only by stepping on Yi Fei could he become a new proud son of heaven. Zhang Huzi blamed himself for this. Slapping himself wasn't enough. He turned around and slapped himself again. At this moment, Yi Fei finally reacted. He quickly grabbed Zhang Huzi's arm and said, "Brother Zhang, you have to do this. The outcome hasn't been decided yet. Why are you blaming yourself? Sword King, could it be that you? Zhang Huzi looked at Yi Fei in shock. Yi Fei smiled slightly and nodded at Shen Tuming. Shen Tuming, you do have some tricks up your sleeve. However, the bet hasn't been explained yet. You'd better not be too complacent. Also, I will definitely go to the heaven-forsaken land. Yi Fei, what do you mean? I didn't expect the Sword King of the North Sea to be such a sore loser. Shen Tuming said angrily. Shut up. I don't like dogs barking when I'm thinking. Yi Fei scolded coldly. He continued standing there without moving or speaking. After being scolded like a dog twice in a row, even if Shen Tuming was a smiling tiger, his face became distorted. He coldly ordered the old man to cut the stone. Yi Fei, today I will make you accept your defeat wholeheartedly. Cut the stone for me immediately. I will also let this country bumpkin know how powerful I, Shen Tuming, am. Yes. The old man helplessly took the stone and glanced at Yi Fei worriedly. As a result, he and the other warriors present were very depressed. The fire was burning his eyebrows. Yi Fei wasn't in a hurry to choose a stone. It was his last gamble. He might as well admit defeat and kowtow to Shen Tuming and beg for mercy. He actually stood there in a daze again. Could it be that you can produce a supreme-grade stone by standing there in a daze? Chapter 590. Spiritual Eye of Heaven and Earth, Sword King, what should I do? How about I cut ties with you? Then you won't have any reason to help me. Zhang Huzi felt the same as everyone else. He felt that Yi Fei was doomed this time. Suddenly, Zhang Huzi thought of a cruel plan. He would betray Yi Fei in front of everyone and stand on Shen Tuming's side. This way, Yi Fei would be able to use his betrayal as an excuse to stop helping him. Hearing Zhang Huzi's words, Yi Fei smiled bitterly. Brother Zhang, it's too late now. Even if you weren't involved, Shen Tuming would definitely use other methods to pull me down from my position as a heaven's pride. Furthermore, after Shen Tuming's repeated provocations, it was no longer the case that Yi Fei could stop if he wanted to. This battle not only concerned the dignity of Zhang Huzi and the other independent cultivators, it also concerned Yi Fei's reputation and the reputation of the entire Beiyang country and the North Sea. I can't lose this battle. But if I can't lose, what should I do? Yi Fei frowned again. He wasn't in a daze just now. It was because Xiao Qiao had sensed that something was wrong with the stone that Shen Tuming had chosen. It turned out that the Qizhen Pavilion's most prized treasure had been cut open and examined. Because of this stone had always been the most prized treasure of the Qizhen Pavilion. This time, when they found out that Shen Tuming was going to bet on Yi Fei's stone, in order to please Shen Tuming, the young master, and at the same time, to let Shen Tuming win, Qizhen Pavilion had purposely mixed this piece of stone into the mix. At the same time, it had undergone special treatment. Unless one had a spiritual eye like Shen Tuming, other cultivators wouldn't be able to discover that this stone had been cleverly cut open and examined. Its value had been estimated beforehand. However, no matter how much Qizhen Pavilion thought about it, they would never have guessed that Yi Fei was carrying a Lingji mushroom doll like Xiao Qiao. With Xiao Qiao's sensitivity towards spiritual energy, it was only natural for him to realize that something was amiss. This was also the reason why Yi Fei was in a daze. Shen Tuming was indeed hiding a knife behind his smile. I don't know what methods he used, but he colluded with Qizhen Pavilion in advance to frame me. Since they were willing to help Shen Tuming tamper with the stone, then the other stones they took out are definitely not good stuff. Even if Xiao Qiao can find spiritual energy in them, my chances of winning against the one that Shen Tuming tampered with are still too low. If he lost, not only would Yi Fei be unable to help Zhang Huzi regain his face, he would also lose the opportunity to enter the heaven-forsaken land. I must enter the heaven-forsaken land. This is not only my promise to the Northern Ocean King, but Wang Bai's letter also reminded me that I must enter the heaven-forsaken land. The more Yi Fei thought about it, the more his head hurt. While he was at it, he touched a few more stones. Although Xiao Chao could sense the fluctuations of spiritual energy in them, compared to the one in Shen Tuming's hand, the difference was still too big. Yi Fei, have you made your choice yet? If you don't choose a stone now, you will automatically admit defeat after my stone is cut open. Shen Tuming crossed his arms and urged him with a cold smile. Since the North Sea Sword Monarch didn't know what was good for him, he could only completely trample Yi Fei down. He could trample on Yi Fei until he couldn't turn over a new leaf for the rest of his life. Shen Tuming's smile turned cold. Why are you in such a hurry? These stones are very ordinary. Don't tell me you don't have any better stones? Yi Fei pretended to be angry and scolded. I'm sorry, but the stones here are all the stones we have in the Qizhen Pavilion. The group of managers all smiled ambiguously. Many warriors looked at Yi Fei sympathetically and secretly shook their heads. They knew that Yi Fei had completely failed this time. At this moment, some people in the crowd also understood Yi Fei's meaning. It wasn't that Yi Fei didn't want to choose a stone, but that he didn't like these stones. Thinking about Yi Fei's miraculous methods last time, that person suddenly had an idea and said, Sword Monarch, if you are not satisfied with these stones, why don't you go to the outer yard? There are more stones there. Outer yard? Why didn't I think of that? Brother, thank you very much. Yi Fei slapped his head and immediately thought of something. If Qizhen Pavilion could tamper with the stones in the inner yard, then what about the outer yard? One had to know that the stones in the outer yard were a mix of good and bad people. The number of stones in the inner yard was more than 10 times that of the inner yard. Even if Qizhen Pavilion wanted to, they might not have the ability to do so. He could only take a gamble. Immediately, Yi Fei didn't say anything and strode out of the outer yard. Shen Tuming was stunned and couldn't help but laugh loudly. Haha, outer yard? If those stones aren't trash, then they are trash that Qizhen Pavilion has discarded. You actually expect to find treasures in there? Shen Tuming sneered. He thought that Yi Fei had lost his mind and was panicking. Whether they are trash or not, you don't have the right to say. I will have to touch them myself, Yi Fei retorted and walked out. Pooh! Ha 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 ha! Behind him was Shen Tuming and a large group of warriors. The managers of Qizhen Pavilion laughed loudly. This Sword Monarch of the North Sea must have lost his mind because of his loss. Some warriors secretly shook their heads. They didn't have any hope for Yi Fei anymore. This is called reaping what you sow. He was arrogant before because he didn't meet a good opponent. Once he met the 10 great kings and the 4 heavens' favorites, he was at his wits' end. Some warriors laughed wantonly. Sword Monarch, you can't do this. There are hundreds of thousands of inferior stones and trash outside. If you continue to touch them like this, how long will it take? Zhang Huzi was full of self-blame. More importantly, there were more warriors in the outer yard than in the inner yard. If Yi Fei lost in front of so many people, it would be the cruelest blow. Shen Tuming also knew this, so he didn't stop Yi Fei. Instead, he deliberately raised his voice and said loudly, Sword Monarch of the North Sea, take your time touching these hundreds of thousands of pieces of trash. If you can find 1/10 of my value, then I will lose. How about it? I, Shen Tuming, have been merciful to you? Merciful your ass. Shen Tuming's voice attracted more and more warriors to watch the show. Yi Fei felt that this person was really sinister. Within the beast mark, Xiao Chao was so angry that his little face turned red. He suddenly made a decision and told Yi Fei not to touch those stones. He had a better idea. Immediately, under Yi Fei's pained gaze, Xiao Chao tearfully plucked a green leaf from his body. He carved something on it and then threw it out, indicating that Yi Fei should also place it between his eyebrows. Yi Fei was very puzzled. Could it be that Xiao Chao also knows how to open his spiritual eye? But now that things have come to this, I have no other choice but to believe in Xiao Qiao. Immediately, Yi Fei made up his mind and pretended to scratch his itch. He had already taken out a lingji leaf from his shoulder and placed it on his forehead. What is the sword monarch of the North Sea doing now? Could it be that he couldn't take the blow and went crazy? Clang! There was another sound of a carving knife falling to the ground. In the corner, the old man who was still slowly rubbing the stones suddenly stood up in shock. His eyes were fixed on Yi Fei's forehead. That is a heaven and earth spiritual eye. How could a human have such a heaven and earth spiritual eye? What? A heaven and earth spiritual eye? Boom! Chapter 591. The Emperor's Ring. Where did Xiao Qiao come from? It's fine if she's a divine flower practitioner, but she can even help me open my spirit eye. Yi Fei felt the purple vertical eye on his forehead. No matter how slow he was, he finally realized how extraordinary Xiao Qiao was. This kind of extraordinariness wasn't something that could be obtained just by transforming a spiritual herb. In the end, whether it was flower arts or stone gambling, without a person's systematic guidance, even if a spiritual item transformed, it was impossible to learn. After obtaining the heaven and earth spirit eye, Yi Fei immediately realized that the hundreds of thousands of stones in front of him had changed. They were no longer simple fossils, and many of them had become colorful. There were white, yellow, blue, black. Among them, the white stones were the most abundant. They took up almost 90% of the stones. After thinking for a bit, Yi Fei understood that these were all waste materials. There wasn't any spiritual energy in them. The remaining yellow stones were also very rare. However, looking at the weak yellow light, Yi Fei reckoned that there were treasures inside, but the value wouldn't be too high. I wonder what color the stone that Shen Tuming chose is. Yi Fei subconsciously looked at the place where the stone was being cut. He realized that the stone had already been cut halfway, but it still couldn't resist the dense black light. Especially the black light with a hint of purple, it gave off a noble feeling. It's actually a black-purple stone. The light it emits is like a torch? This Shen Tuming has indeed invested a lot in order to deal with me. It seems that in order to win against him, I have to choose a purple stone. However, looking at the hundreds of thousands of pieces of waste on the scene, Yi Fei gloomily discovered that the brightest thing among them was a small piece of black stone. Although it was extremely valuable, compared to the treasure in Shen Tuming's hands, it was still too far away. Damn it, in order to help me, Xiao Qiao even tore off the lingji leaves on her body. That's the same as cutting off her own flesh. If I still can't win, how can I face Xiao Qiao? As if she could feel Yi Fei's intentions, Xiao Qiao, who was in the beast mark, smiled sweetly and cheered for Yi Fei even though she was in so much pain that she kept wiping her tears. At the same time, Yi Fei found something different. The old man standing beside the stone-cutting table had 3 eyes on his body. Yi Fei was surprised to find that the old man had 3 eyes. He had 2 normal eyes, but in between his eyebrows, there was also the outline of a vertical eye. The old man obviously sensed Yi Fei's gaze. He was shocked and stared at Yi Fei in disbelief. You can actually see it. Yes, you can open the spiritual eye of heaven and earth. No matter what method you used, you have already embarked on the path of a spiritual eye master. Spiritual eye master. Yi Fei was very puzzled. A spirit eye master is the same as an alchemist. They are both special martial arts. Once you open your spirit eye, you can embark on the path of a spirit eye master. The old man explained. He did not care about the gazes of others. He opened his forehead and revealed the hole between his eyebrows. This old man was actually a very mysterious spirit eye master. Unfortunately, his spirit eye seemed to have been dug out by someone. Only a hole was left. It looked very scary. Of course, this spirit eye could not be seen by others. Only Shen Tu Ming and Yi Fei, who also had spirit eyes, could see it. Who would have thought that there was a spirit eye master hidden in Qizhen Pavilion? Unfortunately, this old man's spirit eye has been destroyed. He can only be a stone cutter. Shen Tu Ming was a little surprised. Then, he sneered disdainfully. So what if you are a spirit eye master? So what if you have the spiritual eye of heaven and earth? The treasure of Qizhen Pavilion is now in my hands. Yi Fei, even if you turn this garbage upside down, don't think that you can beat me. Shen Tu Ming was very confident. In order to better attack Yi Fei, he finally revealed his identity as the young master of Qizhen Pavilion. This caused a commotion among the warriors. What? This Shen Tu Ming is the young master of Qizhen Pavilion? The Sword King of the North Sea is gambling with Shen Tu Ming. He is in trouble now. Almost all the warriors looked at Yi Fei with sympathy. Although the gambling was not over yet, Shen Tu Ming already showed the attitude of a winner. He pointed at Yi Fei proudly and said, Yi Fei, don't try to be brave. I am the young master of Qizhen Pavilion. The best stone in Qizhen Pavilion is in my hands. What else can you use to fight me? If you are a man, then hurry up and admit defeat. I don't have time to waste on a country bumpkin like you. Victory was right in front of him. Shen Tu Ming was too lazy to pretend anymore. He wanted to trample Yi Fei under his feet in front of everyone. This would make his reputation as a new genius. Haha, admit defeat? Shen Tu Ming, it seems that you are too confident. This confidence has blinded your eyes. Is the treasure of Qizhen Pavilion very strong? How can the real treasure be seen by you bunch of mortals with your naked eyes? Get lost, you're blocking my way. It was not without reason that Yi Fei could discover the old man's identity as a spiritual eye master. This was because there was a very ordinary stone under the old man's chair that he often sat on. This stone was obviously a leftover stone, but in Yi Fei's eyes, it was emitting an extremely rich purple light. When he realized that Yi Fei had noticed this stone, the old man's expression changed drastically. He seemed to want to say something, but before he could speak, Yi Fei had already walked over quickly and picked up the stone. I will choose this. Shen Tu Ming could not believe his eyes. What? You will choose this? You actually want to use a leftover stone that can't even be considered a stone to defeat the treasure of Qizhen Pavilion in my hands? The surrounding warriors were also in an uproar. Is Yi Fei's brain damaged? Using the worst trash to compete with someone else's best stone? Could it be that he knows that he is going to lose, so he has given up? The warriors discussed in low voices. Hearing this, Yi Fei finally could not help but roar, All of you, shut up! What trash? In my eyes, you are the trash. Who says the worst can't defeat the best? Who says the weakest can't defeat the strongest? Open your dog eyes wide and look carefully. What is the real treasure? Boom! Yi Fei suddenly smashed the stone in his hand into pieces. With the purple vertical eye, he could guarantee that the spirit energy inside would not be damaged. He only smashed the stone into pieces. Amidst the shattered stone fragments, a simple and unadorned bronze thumb ring appeared in Yi Fei's hand. Then, Yi Fei raised it up high. It can't be. That broken stone actually produced a treasure? Many warriors were very surprised. Shen Tu Ming was also surprised. Then, he could not help but sneer. It's just a broken ring. Could it be more precious than my high-grade spirit stone that weighs 50 kilograms? Seeing that Yi Fei was unwilling to give up, Shen Tu Ming also smashed the stone, revealing the high-grade spirit stone that was emitting a shocking amount of spirit energy. Shen Tu Ming was very pleased with himself. He was waiting for the crowd to be shocked. He was also waiting for Yi Fei to be scared silly. However, what he had hoped for did not happen. All the warriors were staring at the bronze thumb ring that Yi Fei had cut out. Looking at the thumb ring in his hand, Yi Fei also felt strange. Why does it seem so familiar? It's not just familiar. Brother, you are rich. Damn, this is a great emperor's ring. Great Emperor Wang Qing personally wore it when he broke through to martial emperor. Finally, someone broke the silence. Many people rushed towards Yi Fei as if they had gone crazy. They could not wait to snatch the ring from Yi Fei's hand. As for the upper-rank spirit stone that Shen Tuming had cut out, no one had the time to care about that now. Even Shen Tuming himself had a dumbfounded look on his face, as if he had seen a ghost. That was a great emperor's ring. It was clearly in the Qizhen pavilion, but it had been thrown on the ground like trash. However, it had now been discovered by Yi Fei. Chapter 592. Losing until your face turns green. It's fake, it's definitely fake. That's just a piece of trash. How could it be a great emperor's ring? Shen Tuming was not the only one who was shocked by the appearance of the great emperor's ring. The managers of the Qizhen pavilion who had been waiting for Yi Fei to make a fool of himself were now panicking. After all, that piece of trash belonged to the Qizhen pavilion. Now, an outsider had taken out the most valuable treasure of the Qizhen pavilion. Most importantly, this treasure was far more valuable than the Qizhen pavilion's most valuable treasure. If Shen Tuming admitted that this was the great emperor's ring, not only would he lose the bet, the Qizhen pavilion would also lose such a valuable treasure and become the laughingstock of Quicksand City. After the managers secretly reminded him, Shen Tuming immediately understood this point. He laughed coldly and clapped his hands. Yi Fei, I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. You know that you are not my match in stone gambling, so you colluded with the old trash of the Qizhen pavilion and cheated. You want to use a fake great emperor's ring to deceive everyone. What, a fake ring? That's possible. How could a great emperor's treasure be hidden in a piece of trash? Moreover, this piece of trash has always been used by that old man to cushion his chair. That's right. I have long seen that old trash trying to curry favor with the Sword King of the North Sea. They must have colluded and deliberately used a fake ring to deceive us. Many warriors chose to stand on Shen Tuming's side. The main reason was that Yi Fei was able to get a treasure out of a piece of trash. It was too exaggerated. Hearing these people's words, Yi Fei's heart was suddenly filled with anger. This Shen Tuming was too treacherous. He was obviously the one who had colluded with the Qizhen pavilion. Now, he had the nerve to slander an old man. Shen Tuming, you know very well who was the one who cheated. I don't blame you for being a sore loser. You don't have to find a random person to slander. Yi Fei was angry. On the other hand, the old man who had been slandered was expressionless. He neither refuted nor explained. He only shook his head indifferently and said, "What's fake can't be real, what's real can't be fake." Sigh. With a long sigh, the old man turned around and left. Following his long sigh, the whole Quicksand City suddenly, a strange light was emitted. A tall, blurry figure seemed to be attracted by something and appeared in the void. It stretched out its hand and grabbed downward. That giant hand was simply too terrifying. It was clearly an illusory image, yet it released a world-shaking force. As the giant hand fell, the entire Quicksand City shook. The strong pressure caused all the cultivators in the city to feel reverence. They could not help but kneel on one knee and bow to the image. Even Shen Tuming was no exception. He could not resist the shadow at all. He could only kneel down and look at the shadow in shock and fear. Only Yi Fei stood rooted to the ground in shock. He looked at the huge hand that was slowly grabbing at him from the sky. The ring on the hand was too familiar. It was exactly the same as the one in his hand. A terrifying thought suddenly flashed through his mind. It's the image of great Emperor Wang Qing. The great emperor has appeared. Many warriors could not help but exclaim. After all, this was the place where great Emperor Wang Qing comprehended the Tao. It had a very special law of heaven and earth. 5,000 years ago, Someone obtained Great Emperor Wang Qing's cultivation technique in the city and triggered the Great Emperor's vision. 3,000 years ago, there was a genius in the Yellow Sea who coincidentally obtained a fragment of the Great Emperor's weapon and triggered the same vision. Now, the North Sea Sword Monarch has cut out the Great Emperor's ring and triggered another vision. It seems like this is the will of the heavens. The old man's eyes were cloudy, but they were faintly shining. It was as if he was reminiscing and sighing. His words echoed in the ears of every cultivator. At this moment, no one doubted the authenticity of the ring in Yi Fei's hand anymore. All the cultivators looked at Yi Fei with jealousy and envy. That was the Great Emperor's ring. The managers of Qizhen Pavilion were lamenting. Such a treasure was in their Qizhen Pavilion, but they had thrown it away like it was trash. It had benefited Yi Fei for nothing. They wanted to kill themselves. Qizhen Pavilion had suffered a great loss this time. Shen Tu-ming's eyes were red as he stared at the Great Emperor's ring in Yi Fei's hand. He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. I've lost. Not only did I not take his position as a genius, but I also helped him get the Great Emperor's ring. Damn it, I hate it. Shen Tu-ming's face was black with anger, but it was starting to turn green again. When the shadow in the sky disappeared and the pressure came into contact, Shen Tu-ming's face turned completely green. He quickly stood up and turned to leave. Before he left, he didn't forget to take the upper-tier spirit stone that weighed 100 kilograms with him. Sword Monarch, this is bad. Shen Tu-ming is leaving. He can't afford to lose. Zhang Huzi's eyes were fixed on Shen Tu-ming. When he saw that Shen Tu-ming was leaving, Yi Fei didn't have time to react. He immediately shouted. His shout made Shen Tu-ming, who was about to sneak away, stumble. Whoosh! The gazes of the thousands of warriors gathered on Shen Tu-ming. Just a moment ago, Shen Tu-ming was enjoying everyone's attention. But now, he felt that these gazes were piercing to his eyes. Yi Fei finally recovered from the influence of the Great Emperor's ring. He looked coldly at Shen Tu-ming and said, Shen Tu-ming, you've lost. I've lost. Shen Tu-ming's face was ashen. He hated Zhang Huzi to death for reminding him. If it wasn't for this person's reminder, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Yi Fei, I admit that you deserve your position as a genius. Why don't we reconcile? We can still be friends. Shen Tu-ming probed. Friends? Yi Fei sneered. Those who are stronger than you can be your friends. Those who are weaker than you can treat them like ants. I can't afford to have friends like you. Cut the crap. Your space ring belongs to me now. Yi Fei, don't go overboard. Let's both take a step back. It's better for both of us. Shen Tu-ming roared. How could he be willing to hand over his space ring? Every warrior's space ring contained their most important wealth and treasures. What made Shen Tu-ming want to vomit blood the most was that he was so angry that he even put the 100-gene upper spiritual stone into his space ring. If he were to hand it over to Yi Fei, the loss would definitely make Shen Tu-ming suffer for a year. How about this? You can choose any of the stones in my Qizhen Pavilion. You can take all of them. Shen Tu-ming bargained. In short, he didn't want to hand over his space ring. Yi Fei sneered. You want to go back on your word? Great. I haven't tried the power of the Great Emperor's ring yet. I'll use you. What? You want to use the Great Emperor's ring against me? Shen Tu-ming's face was no longer green. Even his eyes had turned green. There was an ominous glint in his eyes, but more than that there was fear. After all, it was the Great Emperor's personal treasure. Who knew how powerful the ring was? At the very least, Shen Tu-ming didn't have the guts to resist it. He immediately retreated a few steps in fright. Yi Fei, don't mess around. This is Quicksand City. Violence is forbidden. Hand over your space ring and I won't mess around. Otherwise, I'll use the Great Emperor's ring to smash you to death. That wouldn't be my doing, but the Great Emperor's. Yi Fei leisurely waved the space ring in his hand. A bright smile appeared on his face. But when his smile fell into the eyes of the crowd, it was scarier than a demon's. Yi Fei was the first person to think of using the Great Emperor's ring to threaten others in the hometown of the Great Emperor. Shen Tu-ming was so angry that his breathing began to hurt. But he was helpless. His bet with Yi Fei was public. He couldn't deny it even if he wanted to. Chapter 593. Family of Bandits. However, Yi Fei still felt that Shen Tu-ming was not angered enough. After all, Shen Tu-ming was someone who had tried to use malicious methods to completely ruin his reputation. At this moment, Yi Fei would not let go of this opportunity to beat Shen Tu-ming while he was down. Seeing that Shen Tu-ming wanted to escape, Yi Fei purposely shouted, "Brother Shen Tu, thank you so much. Not only did you give me the Emperor's ring, you even gave me the treasure of Qizhen Pavilion. You are indeed the young master of Qizhen Pavilion. You are so generous. I will come back to Qizhen Pavilion in the future. You must prepare a few more good stones." Plop. Hearing this, the few managers of Qizhen Pavilion felt their legs go soft. They all knelt on the ground with ugly expressions. One should know that Yi Fei had the spiritual eye of heaven and earth. Treasures in the stones could not escape Yi Fei's eyes. As long as Yi Fei came back once or twice, Qizhen Pavilion could only change its name to Qizhen Pavilion. It would be the type that would lose everything. Hearing this, Shen Tu-ming, who was about to turn and leave, finally lost his balance. If it were not for the manager beside him supporting him, he would have fallen to the ground. However, Shen Tu-ming did not lose his temper. He was still smiling. His smile was very bright and bright. He even turned around gracefully and nodded at Yi Fei with a smile. It was as if he wanted to engrave Yi Fei's face in his mind. He would not forget it even for a breath's time. Yi Fei felt a chill in his heart. Shen Tu-ming's eyes are not normal. However, he can still smile after being beaten like a dog. This person should not be underestimated. With a bright smile on his face, Shen Tu-ming walked into the interior of the Qizhen grid under everyone's strange gazes. Then, the smile on his face gradually began to twist and stiffen. The veins on his face were like poisonous snakes twisting and coiling. "Ah!" Shen Tu-ming suddenly roared. Boom! Following his roar, the entire Qizhen Pavilion began to collapse. Soon, it became a pile of trash. Even so, Shen Tu-ming was not satisfied. He was furious. Roar! 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 Yi Fei motherf asterisk cur, if I, Shen Tu-ming, don't kill you, I swear I'm not human. Shen Tu-ming was so angry that he kept venting his anger in the attic. His face looked like he was about to eat someone alive. The group of Qizhen Pavilion managers who had followed him into the attic felt their legs go weak. They knelt down in a row, trembling. "Young master, don't be angry. Damaging treasures is a small matter, but it's not good for your body to be angry," an experienced manager advised. It would have been better if he hadn't tried to persuade her. Shen Tu-ming then thought of the great emperor's ring that he had lost, as well as the high-grade spirit stone that weighed over 50 kilograms. He had originally planned to kill Yi Fei and send the spirit stone into the desert. But now, he had lost it all to Yi Fei, along with his space ring. Shen Tu-ming was so angry that blood was coming out of his teeth. He turned his head and roared with a ferocious expression, "The few of you enter the desert immediately and report to the 18 bandit commanders. Tell them that no matter what, they can't let Yi Fei enter the heaven-forsaken land. This time, not only do I want his reputation destroyed, I also want his life." "Yes, young commander." The Qizhen Pavilion's managers, who were kneeling in a row, raised their heads and changed the way they addressed Shen Tu-ming. In Quicksand City, Qizhen Pavilion had a secret that no one knew. On the surface, Qizhen Pavilion was a gambling den, but secretly, It was a meeting point for the bandits to contact and dispose of their stolen goods. The 10 Great Kings were only Shen Tu-Ming's surface identity. His real identity was that of a bandit in the desert. He was ruthless and merciless. This time, Shen Tu-Ming had only left the desert to do 2 things. One was to bring back the treasure that he had found in Qizhen Pavilion. The second was to befriend the idiot Song Zhong and find a way to cooperate with Beiyuan country. But now, these 2 things had been unintentionally ruined by Yi Fei. After Shen Tu-Ming's anger subsided, he thought of his failure this time. It was all because of the old man who had ruined his plans. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. "Pass down my orders. Capture that old piece of trash who had cut the stone for me. If it wasn't for that old piece of trash hiding the stone, Qizhen Pavilion wouldn't have suffered such heavy losses this time. Torture him to death and find out the secret of how he became a spiritual eye master. Yes, young commander, don't worry. We will cut that old piece of trash into pieces and throw him into the desert to feed the sandworms." The 2 managers stood up with a fierce look and immediately rushed out to capture the old man. But even after searching the entire Qizhen Pavilion and even the entire Quicksand City, they still couldn't find the old man. It was as if the old man had disappeared into thin air. Not only were the people of Qizhen Pavilion unable to find him, even Yi Fei didn't know where the old man had gone. This made him feel a little regretful. "Originally, I wanted to thank the old man for his help. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have found the high-quality stone under his feet. But now, he's gone missing." Yi Fei sighed. He understood that unless the old man showed himself, it would be very difficult to find an old man who had purposely disappeared in the vast sea of people. Besides, he didn't have the time. After leaving Qizhen Pavilion, Yi Fei asked Zhang Huzi and his friends, "Quicksand City is no longer peaceful. I plan to enter the desert now and go to the heaven-forsaken land. What are your plans?" "North Sea Sword King, we're sorry, but we've thought about it. We want to stay in the city for a while longer, so we won't be going with you," the Sword King promises. When these rogue cultivators spoke, their eyes were somewhat evasive. They seemed to have forgotten that just yesterday, they couldn't wait to enter the desert with Yi Fei so that they could look after each other. Only Zhang Huzi wanted to say something when Yi Fei hurriedly pulled him back. He understood that these people were worried about their safety. After all, he had caused too much of a ruckus in Qizhen Pavilion. These rogue cultivators were all timid and afraid of trouble. It was understandable that they didn't dare to stay with him. "All right, then we'll say our goodbyes here. Everyone, take care." Yi Fei cupped his hands towards them. "Sword King, take care." The rogue cultivators hurriedly returned the salute. They couldn't help but feel ashamed. Except for Zhang Huzi, the others turned and left. They were afraid that if they were too close to Yi Fei, they would be regarded as his accomplice. Yi Fei couldn't help but feel angry and amused. He sympathized with these people and stood up for them, but now they couldn't wait to avoid him. Perhaps this is human nature. He shook his head slightly and sighed. After walking a few steps, he realized that Zhang Huzi had been following him. Yi Fei couldn't help but feel puzzled. "Brother Zhang, why haven't you left yet?" Zhang Huzi's face turned red. He said loudly, "If the Sword King doesn't chase me away, I won't leave." After saying that, Zhang Huzi knelt in front of Yi Fei with a plop. "Sword King, I know that I don't have much ability, but I'm also a 10th layer martial king. I can help the Sword King. If the Sword King doesn't despise me for being a rogue cultivator, please accept me into the Sword King mansion." "Brother Zhang, what are you doing? Get up quickly." Yi Fei was very surprised. What did Zhang Huzi mean? Why did he want to submit to him? "No, if the Sword King doesn't accept me, I won't get up." Zhang Huzi actually acted shamelessly. Yi Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, Zhang Huzi was a good person and his strength was not bad. Although he was a rogue cultivator, Yi Fei didn't look down on him. "Brother Zhang, get up. If you can join the Sword King Mansion, I will naturally welcome you. Do you want to go to the Sword King Mansion now or follow me to the heaven-forsaken land first?" Yi Fei asked in a deep voice. He didn't refuse Zhang Huzi's submission. Chapter 594. The sand boat. Hearing that Yi Fei was willing to accept him, Zhang Huzi stood up happily and said respectfully, "Sword King, I've thought about it. I, Zhang Huzi, am not like you geniuses. Being able to obtain the heavenly spirit pill is already the luckiest thing in my life. Rather than risking my life in the desert, I would rather stay behind and do something useful for the Sword King." Yi Fei nodded inwardly. The heaven-forsaken land was a huge temptation to the entire northern region. Once one entered it and obtained a fortuitous encounter, even an ordinary cultivator would be able to soar to the sky. This was something that countless cultivators had personally proven. For example, the current titled expert of the northern region, Wu Jun, had all entered the heaven-forsaken land when they were young. However, Zhang Huzi was able to resist the temptation. This was rare and commendable. Although there were countless fortuitous encounters in the heaven-forsaken land, there was also a 90% chance of death. Every time the heaven-forsaken land opened, it would attract hundreds of thousands of martial king experts from the northern region. However, the number of people who could truly pass through the desert and enter the heaven-forsaken land was less than 100,000. The remaining people either gave up halfway or met with bandits and died in the desert. Out of 100,000 people who entered the heaven-forsaken land, only 50,000 could come out. This was already considered very lucky. Usually, only 10,000 people could come out of the heaven-forsaken land alive and return to their respective countries. These 10,000 people were the absolute elites of the northern region. Only this portion of people had the hope of breaking through to the titled expert Wu Jun. Thinking of this, Yi Fei sighed. He knew that Zhang Huzi's cultivation was still far from enough to enter the heaven-forsaken land. He took out a token and handed it to Zhang Huzi, saying, "Brother Zhang, this is my Sword King token. Take it and go to the Northern Sea Pass to find Yi Jian, Jin Jizi, or the Frenzied Blade Elder. They will naturally find a place for you. Your Highness, then I will take my leave. Oh right, before I left, I acted on my own initiative and helped Your Highness contact a sand boat to enter the desert. Your Highness only needs to go out of the city and find Boss Qian Xiaolong. He will bring Your Highness into the desert." Zhang Huzi happily took the token and left after saying this. Yi Fei was also very satisfied with Zhang Huzi. He felt that this person was indeed a meticulous person. Hence, after sending Zhang Huzi out of the city, he quickly found Boss Qian outside the city. Speaking of which, this Boss Qian also looked familiar. It was actually the luxurious young master who had persuaded him during his first stone gambling. "Boss Qian, thank you so much for your help with the Qizhen Pavilion." Yi Fei greeted Qian Xiaolong. It turned out that when he was in the Qizhen Pavilion, it was also this Qian Xiaolong who reminded him to search for stones in the outer courtyard. That was how he coincidentally found the stone that hid the Emperor's ring. Now that they had met, Yi Fei naturally had to express his gratitude. It could be said that Qian Xiaolong had played a part in turning defeat into victory and protecting his and Beihai's reputation. "Haha, North Sea Sword Monarch, you're too polite. Your stone gambling skills have really opened my eyes." Qian Xiaolong was full of admiration for Yi Fei. Yi Fei had always been thick-skinned, but at this moment, his old face was slightly red. What the hell did he know about stone gambling? It was all Xiao Chao's credit. Even the spiritual eye of heaven and earth was secretly obtained by Xiao Chao. However, he could not say these words out loud. He could only calmly chat with Qian Xiaolong and brag. After a while, Yi Fei found out that Qian Xiaolong was not a martial artist. He was just a stone gambling merchant. Even his cultivation of the 7th martial king realm was all achieved by using a large number of elixirs. Therefore, Qian Xiaolong's strength was very weak. A 7th martial king realm cultivator did not even have the combat strength of a 1st martial king realm cultivator. Unfortunately, Qian Xiaolong liked to take risks. Especially stone gambling, it was thrilling and exciting. A single cut could make a martial artist lose until his face turned green. It could also make a martial artist become rich overnight. It was Qian Xiaolong's favorite. Sword Monarch, this time, you don't have to pay anything for entering the desert. You just have to ensure that we won't be attacked by the bandit. After the conversation, Qian Xiaolong brought Yi Fei onto the sand boat. It was a huge warship, but it did not have any oars. Everything was moved by the wind generated by the formation. After the conversation with Qian Xiaolong, Yi Fei found out that the desert of the northern heavenly kingdom was not naturally formed. Instead, there had been an emperor-level battle here, which had destroyed this land. The powerful kingdom had disappeared in the blink of an eye. The lush land had turned into sand in an instant. Hundreds of millions of people had all died. It was a tragic battle. Now that he mentioned it, Qian Xiaolong was also shocked. Because of this desert was also very strange. The yellow sand in it could not only flow like a river, but also quickly. The ground was terrifyingly hot. If a piece of cloth was thrown on the ground, it would be burned to ashes in the blink of an eye. If a martial artist walked in on foot, in less than 10 hours, he would either exhaust his true essence and give up halfway, or his qi and blood would evaporate and he would die of thirst. Therefore, in order to enter the desert, one had to use a special tool, the sand boat. Brother Yi, the bandits will only appear in the depths. Now, you can move around as you wish and cultivate. If we encounter a strong enemy, you just have to take action, Qian Xiaolong said to Yi Fei. Yi Fei was not the only martial artist on his sand boat. The entire sand boat could accommodate hundreds of young martial kings who were heading to the Forsaken Land. Ordinary bandits would not dare to approach it at all. Only when they encountered a strong enemy among the bandits would Yi Fei take action. At the same time, Qian Xiaolong's purpose was different from the others. Others entered the desert to head to the Forsaken Land, but Qian Xiaolong entered the desert specifically for the stones buried deep underground. As long as he could find a fossil with spiritual energy, Qian Xiaolong could become rich overnight. Therefore, on the sand boat, Qian Xiaolong was the weakest and the richest. As soon as they entered the desert, Yi Fei heard Qian Xiaolong calling out to the workers who were mining. As they drove the sand boat, they constantly searched for hidden stones underground. This was like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, Qian Xiaolong and many other martial artists were having fun. Yi Fei did not join in their fun. Instead, he quickly walked into his room. "Xiao Qiao, are you alright?" He was a little worried. Ever since Xiao Qiao used the Lingji leaf to help him open the spiritual eye of heaven and earth, Yi Fei realized that with the disappearance of the spiritual eye, Xiao Qiao also became dispirited. He slept in the beast mark space and did not make a sound. Now that there was no one else, Yi Fei naturally had to take good care of him. Squeak. After a long time, Xiao Qiao's weak voice came from the beast mark space. A small head poked out of the beast mark space. When she realized that only Yi Fei was there, Xiao Qiao completely came out. Suddenly, she lay on Yi Fei's body and panted slightly. She had a tired and weak expression on her face. Yi Fei felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. He could not help but hug Xiao Qiao tightly. "Xiao Qiao, it's all my fault. In the future, without my permission, you are not allowed to pluck the Lingji leaf from your body. Do you understand?" Squeak squeak. Xiao Qiao nodded very hard to express that she was not stupid enough to harm herself. However, Xiao Qiao's eyes were very determined. In her heart, she silently thought that if Yi Fei was in danger in the future, she would still pluck the Lingji leaf that should be plucked. Although it was very painful, it was no different from cutting her flesh. However, looking at Yi Fei's concerned expression, Xiao Chao felt very happy. Her small head leaned on Yi Fei's shoulder and she looked sleepy. Chapter 595. Xiao Chao's Secret. Unknowingly, Xiao Chao has helped me so much. On the other hand, I haven't helped Xiao Chao much. Yi Fei looked at Xiao Cao's weak appearance and his heart was instantly filled with guilt. Unfortunately, Xiao Chao was a spiritual creature of heaven and earth that had taken human form. She was different from a human, so he couldn't help Xiao Chao heal. What should he do? Seeing Xiao Chao lying in his arms and continuously weakening, Yi Fei was very anxious. In his anxiety, he suddenly thought of the first time he saw Xiao Chao injured. At that time, I remember that after Little Grass was injured, she had to absorb a saint-grade spirit spring water to recover. But in this vast desert, there isn't even a drop of water. Where would I find a saint-grade spirit spring for her? Yi Fei frowned. In the end, he thought of a solution. Since there isn't a Holy Spirit spring, I don't know if I can replace it with a spirit stone. Moreover, the spiritual energy in a spirit stone is more abundant than a Holy Spirit spring. Coincidentally, when he was gambling with Shin Tu Ming, Yi Fei won all of Shin Tu Ming's 50 kilograms of high-grade spirit stone. At this time, Yi Fei couldn't care less. He hurriedly opened Shin Tu Ming's interspatial ring and took out the huge high-grade spirit stone. He asked Xiao Chao, take a look at this. Can it help you recover? Xiao Chao looked up and saw that Yi Fei was actually giving her such a precious thing. She quickly waved her hands to show that she didn't need it. In the end, the holy Bodhi needed these spirit stones to mature. These spirit stones were related to a lot of candied haws. Xiao Chao repeatedly gestured to show that she didn't need it. However, how could her longing eyes hide from Yi Fei? Yi Fei couldn't help but laugh. He rubbed her little head and said, Xiao Chao, you really don't need to replenish your spiritual energy? Xiao Chao firmly waved her little fist. She had promised to help Yi Fei cultivate Saint Bodhi. If she said so, Xiao Chao would definitely do it. Is that so? That's a pity. Originally, I wanted to wait until you were healed and then take you to eat the delicious candied haws. It seems that I should wait until you are healed. Yi Fei pretended to put away all the candied haws in the beast mark space. In any case, Yi Fei had studied the beast mark for a long time. He had long understood the principle of entering and exiting the beast mark space. This made Xiao Chao very anxious. A layer of mist appeared in her eyes. She was afraid that Yi Fei would really take away her treasure. In a hurry, Xiao Chao could only take a bite out of the huge upper-level spirit stone. He even took a big bite out of it and swallowed it. Damn, Xiao Chao, your teeth are so good. You are simply eating spirit stones like rice. Yi Fei couldn't help but tease Xiao Chao. When Xiao Chao heard this, her face suddenly turned red. She quickly covered her face with her small hands. She looked like she had lost a lot of face. In the end, no matter how young Xiao Chao was, she was still a little girl. When her secret of eating was suddenly discovered, she felt a little uneasy. It was as if she was afraid that Yi Fei would dislike her for eating too much and then not want her anymore. Thus, Xiao Chao looked at Yi Fei bashfully and pushed the spirit stone back. She indicated that she was already full after eating a small piece. Yi Fei suddenly felt uncomfortable. He had long suspected that Xiao Chao was clearly a Lingji child, but she ate candied haws as if they were her staple food. Every day, when she was free, she would stuff a lot of candied haws into her mouth. It could be said that she liked to eat them, but if she ate tens of thousands of candied haws day and night, no matter how delicious the food was, she would get tired of it. However, Xiao Chao just didn't get tired of eating candied haws. The first thing she did every day when she woke up was to eat as much as she could. There were two possibilities for this. The first was that Xiao Chao really had no resistance to candied haws. The second was that Xiao Chao was simply too hungry. Just like humans, once they were hungry, they would even eat dirt, not to mention other things. Now it seems that Xiao Chao is also like this. This little girl, she actually hid the fact that I was hungry all this time. She only ate candied haws that were completely useless to her. Yi Fei suddenly felt a little sour in his heart. In fact, he should have thought of this earlier. Since Xiao Chao was a spiritual creature that had taken human form, what she needed the most was spiritual energy. And the thing that gathered the most spiritual energy was spirit stones. Once she ran out of spirit stones to eat, Xiao Chao would starve and even become weaker. Unfortunately, he didn't notice this until now. Because Xiao Chao was too weak, he accidentally exposed this secret. Xiao Chao, tell me, do you need a lot of spirit stones to eat your fill? Yi Fei's expression was very serious. Xiao Chao hurriedly waved her hand, indicating that she was very easy to feed. She didn't need spirit stones at all. She just needed to eat candied haws to fill her stomach when she was hungry. Is that really the case, Xiao Chao? Do you think I'm so easy to fool? Yi Fei's expression became even more serious, but his heart was filled with warmth. This time, Xiao Chao didn't say anything. She only lowered her head uneasily and pinched her fingers with a bashful expression. Yi Fei naturally understood Xiao Chao's uneasiness. In the end, spirit stones weren't ordinary things. There were no more spirit stones left in the Tianwu continent. The remaining spirit stones were even rarer. For someone like Xiao Chao, who ate spirit stones for food, and a large amount of spirit stones at that, even those super aristocratic families couldn't afford to raise her. Normally, when a cultivator encountered a spiritual creature like Xiao Chao, their first reaction was definitely not to raise Xiao Chao and let her grow. Instead, they would kill her and refine her like a spiritual medicine, or even directly refine her into an elixir. This was the same as ordinary people. When there was enough food, they would catch some kittens and puppies and raise them as pets. But once there was a famine, even if they couldn't bear it, the first ones to be eaten would be these pets. Yi Fei understood that Xiao Chao's uneasiness was definitely because of this. That was why she had been enduring her hunger and didn't let Yi Fei feel that she was a burden. He wouldn't abandon her, nor would he hurt her. You're really a smart girl. But Xiao Chao, don't worry. In my eyes, you're not a tool or a pet. You're my friend, my companion. Even if the whole world abandons you, I won't abandon you. Yi Fei held the weak Xiao Chao with an incomparably solemn expression. I will definitely let you grow up like a normal girl. I will protect you and not let anyone bully you. So in the future, you don't need to hide anything from me. If you're hungry, just eat as much as you want. It's just a spirit stone. It's not like I can't afford to raise you. As he spoke, Yi Fei pushed the spirit stone back to Xiao Chao. Xiao Chao didn't refuse this time. She just hugged the spirit stone with red eyes and glanced at Yi Fei again. Eat it. If you're not full, don't think about eating candied haws in the future. Yi Fei had a smile on his face as he lovingly rubbed Xiao Chao's ponytail. Xiao Chao smiled happily and finally ate the spirit stone without worry. It was obvious that Xiao Chao was really starving. She finished the 100 kilograms of high-grade spirit stone in just a few bites. With the nourishment of sufficient spiritual energy, Xiao Chao's tired spirit recovered. Even the green leaves that she had lost and her wounds were quickly healing. Chapter 596. Sand Bandit. Since he knew this, Yi Fei wouldn't be stingy with Xiao Chao. Even if he didn't have many spiritual stones on hand, he still had Shin Tu Ming's interspatial ring. As one of the 10 great kings and the young master of Qizhen Pavilion, Shin Tu Ming wasn't someone that Song Zhong could compare to. Yi Fei even suspected that Song Zhong's title as one of the 10 great kings was given to him because of Song Yu. Although Song Zhong and Shin Tu Ming were both 10 great kings, the difference between them was like heaven and earth. At the very least, Shin Tu-ming still made Yi Fei feel a trace of fear. Of course, such a person like Shin Tu-ming also had a considerable amount of wealth on hand. From Shin Tu-ming's interspatial ring, Yi Fei found a total of 5,000 mid-grade spiritual stones and 20 million spiritual crystals. When he poured out all these things, Yi Fei opened his mouth wide in shock. As for Xiao Chao, his saliva was already dripping onto Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei also laughed loudly. "Xiao Chao, these are all for you. Don't worry about your injuries." Moi. Xiao Chao also happily kissed Yi Fei on the cheek. Then, he ran to the pile of spiritual crystals and waved his little hand. The spiritual energy was like a whistling river that was sucked into Xiao Chao's body and turned into his own nutrient. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but after absorbing so much spiritual energy, Yi Fei suddenly felt that Xiao Chao seemed to have grown a little. He looked like he was 3 years old before. Why did he look like he was 4 years old now? Illusion, this must be an illusion. Yi Fei shook his head vigorously and refused to accept this reality. Otherwise, if Xiao Chao's appetite was so shocking, how could he afford to raise him? After finally being full for once, Xiao Chao pounced on Yi Fei with a satisfied look on his face. He even took out a map and handed it to Yi Fei while gesturing. "Xiao Chao, what did you say? This map was found in Shin Tu-ming's spatial ring? Or is it hidden inside the spirit stone?" Yi Fei was very surprised. Yi Fei felt that Shin Tu-ming was indeed sinister. He had even hidden the map so well. If it wasn't for Xiao Chao, he definitely wouldn't have discovered it. Yi Fei couldn't help but curiously unfold the map and look at it. This is a map of the desert. Why would Shin Tu-ming have something like this? Yi Fei looked at the map and was shocked. The map that Shin Tu-ming had hidden was actually a detailed map of the desert. Not only did it mark out all the dangerous areas in the desert, it even mentioned the many traps that the bandits had created. For example, through this map, Yi Fei found out that there were a total of 18 large bandit groups in this desert. On the map, not only did it show the approximate location of their base, it also showed the approximate route that they would take. Not good. Boss Qian's sand boat is heading towards the edge of a bandit trap. If they fall into it, they will immediately be surrounded by the bandit. Yi Fei looked at the map and combined it with the route that the sand boat had taken in the past few days. He suddenly felt a faint sense of danger. He didn't have time to think about how Shin Tu-ming had such a detailed map of the desert. Seeing that Xiao Chao was fine, Yi Fei rushed to the side of the boat at his fastest speed and shouted, "Boss Qian, how long will it take for you to reach the middle of the desert? We've already arrived. Brother Yi, is there something wrong?" After all, traveling in the desert was full of danger. Seeing Yi Fei's nervous expression, Qian Xiaolong also became nervous. "Not good, retreat immediately. There is a bandit trap ahead. There are at least 100,000 sandworms in there." Yi Fei didn't have time to explain. He could only rush Qian Xiaolong. "What? 100,000 sandworms?" Qian Xiaolong's complexion turned as pale as a sheet of paper. If someone else said this, he wouldn't believe it. However, it was Yi Fei who said this. Qian Xiaolong didn't dare to be negligent. Pass down the order. Turn the sand boat around and retreat at full speed. Qian Xiaolong was a decisive person. Following his order, the sand boat, which was moving at a constant speed, suddenly came to a stop when it reached the middle of the desert. Rumble! The sand boat, which was several hundred meters tall, moved very nimbly. More than 50 Marshal King helmsmen nimbly turned the boat around. The giant sand boat had already turned around and was about to leave this area at full speed. This caused all of the martial artists who were excitedly searching for stones in the desert to be startled. What's going on? Why did they turn around? Quickly turn back. We are going to the heaven-forsaken land. You bunch of dogs, why did you turn around? Do you believe that this young master will kill you all? When the sand boat turned around, the cultivators were dissatisfied. Some of them were impatient and started arguing with the crew. Qian Xiaolong kept smiling and saying, "Everyone, there is danger ahead. There are 100,000 sandworms gathered there. It might be a bandit trap. We need to change our route." "What? A bandit trap? Where are the bandits? Where are the sandworms? Boss Qian, are you confused? The weather is fine, there is not even a shadow of the bandits. Who told you there is danger? Tell them to come out. I want to see who is so bold to spout nonsense." "That's right. Turn back, turn back. We are going to the heaven-forsaken land. How dare you waste our time? Do you believe that we will tear your broken boat apart?" The cultivators did not believe Boss Qian's words. The main reason was that they didn't feel any danger, not to mention 100,000 sandworms. This was too exaggerated. If there were that many sandworms, the desert would have been covered with them. Why didn't they see them? After hearing what everyone said, Qian Xiaolong was also put in a difficult position. He looked at Yi Fei doubtfully and said, "Brother Yi, are you sure that there are 100,000 sandworms ahead?" "I can't be sure, but if the information I obtained is correct, there should be a trap ahead." Yi Fei hesitated. He wasn't sure if Shun Tuming's map was real or not. "Pfft, you can't be sure? Damn, you're just speculating and you dare turn the sand boat around? Do you know how dangerous it is to walk in the desert?" There were already some impulsive cultivators who heard this and wanted to beat up Yi Fei. At this time, no one recognized that Yi Fei was the North Sea Sword Monarch. No matter how Qian Xiaolong tried to persuade them, it was useless. Some people even took the opportunity to kick Qian Xiaolong several times. In the end, those that dared to enter the heaven-forsaken land were all outstanding youths of the northern domain. All of them were proud and arrogant. If Yi Fei revealed his identity, then it would be fine. But if he didn't, then they wouldn't care who Yi Fei was. Wasting time in the desert was the same as dying. "Brat, if you don't give us a clear explanation today, then we'll throw you out to feed the worms." After kicking Qian Xiaolong, they rushed towards Yi Fei. Yi Fei bitterly smiled as he saw this. He originally wanted to kindly remind Qian Xiaolong, but who would have thought that all the cultivators on the boat would be so difficult to deal with? As the commotion on the boat began, no one noticed that in the distant desert, several gray figures suddenly stood up. Their eyes flashed with a green light as they stared at the chaotic sand boat. "Creak, what's going on?" The sand boat suddenly turned around. "Did they discover the trap we laid? That shouldn't be possible. This trap is something that we recently developed. It's so perfect that we can't find a single flaw. Unless it's someone on our side, no one will be able to discover it. But the sand boat has stopped. If we let them drive it out, then we will have failed. Tell me, what do we desert bandits do?" Chapter 597. Sandworm Horn. Woo 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 woo. After the bandits roared, a strange horn appeared in each of their hands and they blew it into the sky. At this moment, the agitated warriors on the sand boats had already rushed to Yi Fei's side. They waved their fists, wanting to press Yi Fei onto the deck and give him a good beating. However, when they heard the desolate horn, they all stopped. Their eyes revealed a deep fear. "Shah! Bandits? Not good, bandits are attacking!" The chaotic sand boats became even more chaotic. Warriors were panicking everywhere. This made Yi Fei shake his head inwardly. In the end, this was a temporary team from all over the northern region. They were a typical motley crew. "All of you, shut up. They are just bandits. What is there to be afraid of? Boss Qian, turn around immediately. I'm afraid there are more than just bandits here," Yi Fei shouted in a deep voice. His voice instantly suppressed everyone's voices. Qian Xiaolong was also stunned for a moment before he reacted. Brother Yi is actually telling the truth. There are really bandits traps here. Not good. Quickly cast the net and set sail. Retreat at full speed. No warrior dared to act rashly. Following Qian Xiaolong's orders, Half of the workers on the huge sand boats cast the net with all their might. The net was filled with dried meat from various vicious beasts. It was also the favorite food of the sandworms. They used the large net to throw the dried meat into the desert like raindrop. When the dried meat came into contact with the heat of the desert, it would emit a roasted meat fragrance. This would attract the sandworms and prevent the sand boats from being attacked by the sandworms. The sand boats could also take advantage of this opportunity to shake off the sandworms' attack. These were the experiences that they had learned while walking in the desert. However, these experiences were only enough to deal with ordinary sandworms. This year's heaven-forsaken land had opened. The bandits had also made better and more vicious preparations. Seeing the dried meat thrown out by the sand boats, the bandits only laughed strangely. Ha ha, this bunch of idiot! Since you have fallen into our trap, do you think that you can escape with such a small trick? Come, our sandworm army. Devour the sand boats in front of us and eat the flesh of those warriors. We are not interested in the dead. What we are interested in are their belongings and, of course, their beautiful women. Woo 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 woo. Woo 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 woo. The entire desert was filled with the wild laughter of the bandit. They blew their horns harder and harder. Yi Fei soon realized what was going on. What the bandits were blowing wasn't an ordinary horn. This horn was very rhythmic, like a very strange melody. This sound was very ear-piercing to humans, but to the sandworms, it was like a violent signal. Rumble. It was as if the earth was collapsing, as if the deep sea was howling, and as if a hurricane was raging in the desert. The surrounding quicksand suddenly rippled like waves. Weird sandworms that looked like earthworms but had bloody mouths and sharp teeth crawled out of the desert one after another. 1, 2, 1,000, 2,000, heavens, there are at least 5,000 sandworms near the sand boat. There are even more coming from behind. Some of the martial artists were already crying out in fright at this terrifying scene. Faced with the densely packed sandworm army that seemed to cover the sky, even the martial kings present felt like they were about to collapse. It was only now that everyone understood how wise Qian Xiaolong's decision to turn the sand boat around was. However, they were all proud and arrogant. They looked down on a merchant like Qian Xiaolong and disdained to listen to him. Now, 5,000 sandworms had surrounded the sand boat, and even more sandworms were still coming out of the desert in a frenzy. Boss Qian, what should we do? I beg you, quickly think of something. Some of the martial artists were so frightened that they begged Qian Xiaolong with all their might. Brother Yi, what should we do? Whether I can survive or not depends on you, the Northern Sea Sword Monarch. Qian Xiaolong also cried out. He didn't care about shame and hugged Yi Fei's thigh in front of everyone. Yi Fei's face darkened. He really wanted to kick Qian Xiaolong off the sand boat. Boss Qian, hurry up and get up. You're a man, why are you crying? Don't worry, since I'm on your boat, I'll definitely make sure you're safe. After much persuasion, Yi Fei finally managed to kick Qian Xiaolong off his thigh. The martial artists on the sand boat were all shocked. What? The Northern Sea Sword Monarch? We're actually lucky enough to be on the same sand boat as the Northern Sea Sword Monarch? Heavens, I actually wanted to hit him just now. It's too scary. Fortunately, I didn't offend him. Sword Monarch, save us! Hearing that there were actually outstanding geniuses on the boat, the chaotic martial artists immediately found their backbone. These people were not convinced by each other, but no one dared to disobey the 5 outstanding geniuses. At this moment, the sand boat was surrounded by sandworms and was completely immobilized. The dried meat that was thrown out didn't have any effect. Under the influence of the bugle horn, the sandworms had all gone berserk. They would never stop until the sand boat was destroyed. There were 100,000 sandworms. Besides the titled martial artist Wu Jun, no one could survive this violent beast tide. Of course, Yi Fei couldn't either. We have to stop the bandits from controlling the sandworms. Boss Qian, you guys stay on the boat and protect it. I'll go kill the bandits behind. Yi Fei gritted his teeth as he looked at the sea of sandworms rushing towards them. He knew that there was only one way to survive. Kill the bandits and break their control of the sandworms. Devouring sword intent. Sky burying sword. Boom. Boom. Yi Fei instantly rushed out. Before the sandworms could attack the sand boat, he had become one with his sword. A pitch-black sword aura formed a terrifying beam of light that swept forward. Hundreds of sandworms were swept up and sent flying. Amidst the sea of sandworms, a yellow wave was formed. However, Yi Fei wasn't happy. Instead, his expression became even more solemn. The defense of these sandworms was too strong. Not only were their attacks strong, but they also had a natural layer of sand covering their bodies. Even a martial king's attack would find it difficult to kill them instantly. At this moment, Yi Fei finally understood why so many martial artists were scared out of their wits when they saw the sandworms. In this quicksand, encountering bandits and sandworms often meant death. Roar! Yi Fei's actions had completely enraged the sandworms. Hundreds of sandworms were repelled. More than 1,000 sandworms rolled up a wall of sand that was nearly 100 meters high and viciously smashed towards Yi Fei. The scene was extremely frightening. The expressions of the martial artists on the sand boat changed when they saw this. It was already very impressive for an ordinary sandworm to be able to raise a wall of sand that was several meters high. A large-scale sandworm would be able to raise a wall of sand that was a dozen meters high at most. For example, a wall of sand that was more than 100 meters high could not be formed without at least 100,000 sandworms. In an instant, the martial artists on the sand boat were all horrified. Heavens, 100,000 sandworms! These bandits have no intention of letting us live. If the North Sea Sword Monarch can't stop them, we'll all be finished. Chapter 598. The flames of war will never die. Realizing how terrifying the sandworms were, the cultivators on the sand boat were all terrified. They could only stare at Yi Fei. If Yi Fei could block the sandstorm, they would still have a chance of survival. If even Yi Fei could not block the sandworms, the entire sand boat would be destroyed immediately. The hundreds of martial kings on the boat would all die here and be swallowed by the sandworms until not even their bones were left. Of course, Yi Fei did not wish to see that happen. Sky-burying sword suppress. Yi Fei waved his sword again, trying to imprison the terrifying sandstorm wall in front of him. The group of bandits in the distance looked at Yi Fei mockingly. Haha, this fool. Even if you are an outstanding talent, you will have to retreat when facing 100,000 sandworms. You want to kill us? Is that person also an outstanding talent? Why have I never seen him before? What sword monarch of the Northern Sea? How can a remote place like the Northern Sea produce an outstanding talent? Stop talking. Activate the sandworm bugle with all your might. It doesn't matter if he is a genius or an outstanding talent. We, the bandits, are the kings of this land of quicksand. Whoever we want to live, they will live. Whoever we want to die, they will die. Controlling life and death, the bandits were kings. Rumble. The huge sword light slashed out, but it had no effect. Even an ant could bite an elephant to death. Yi Fei could not imprison the sandstorm wall. He alone could not deal with 100,000 sandworms. The sword monarch lost? Many cultivators were in despair when they saw Yi Fei retreating. No, the sword monarch will not lose. Even more cultivators were unwilling. They did not want to die, and they did not want Yi Fei to lose. Of course, Yi Fei did not want to lose either. I promised Qian Xiaolong that I would protect his sand boat. A man can die in battle, but he cannot go back on his promise. So what if there are 100,000 sandworms? Even if there are 1,000,000 or 10,000,000 of them, I have nothing to fear. As long as the war demon did not die, the flames of war would never be extinguished. Rumble. The last words of the Demon Emperor before he left flashed through Yi Fei's mind. Suddenly, a resplendent golden light exploded from Yi Fei's body. Kill! Yi Fei roared furiously. His entire body was like a dazzling golden meteor, and also like a huge golden sword shadow. He whistled as he charged forward. Boom! Heaven and earth shook, and countless people were shocked. Yi Fei's body collided with the wall of wind and sand, creating a huge bloody hole in it. Countless sandworms were crushed by Yi Fei just like that. Yi Fei stepped on their corpses and continued forward, killing the dozen or so bandits who were still blowing the horn behind him. The wall of wind and sand was broken through. It wasn't until now that the martial artists on the sand boat regained their composure. They were shocked by Yi Fei's terrifying strength. Even if Fu Renjie or Lin Tianjiao were here, they wouldn't be able to do better than Yi Fei. Then, a strong fighting spirit surged in everyone's heart. Yi Fei had used his own actions and his fearless fighting style to finally inspire the fighting spirit of this group of martial artists. In the end, they were also geniuses of the Northern Divine Region. In the end, they were also the pride of their respective regions. Long live the Sword Monarch of the North Sea! Well done, Sword Monarch of the North Sea! Brothers, show some courage. The Sword Monarch is fighting for us outside. We can't let him down. Protect the sand boat. As long as the boat lives, we live. If the boat dies, we die. Sword Monarch, we don't have the ability to fight side by side with you. All we can do is help you protect the sand boat. Many martial artists roared. They were filled with passion and had forgotten their fear. One by one, they roared and rushed out of the sand boat with bloodshot eyes, fighting the approaching sandworms. These youths have gone mad. Some of the bandits were puzzled. In their opinion, the martial artists on the sand boat should have collapsed in fear after being surrounded by so many terrifying sandworms. But now, not only were they not running for their lives in fear, they were actually united and fighting with their lives on the line? As expected of a proud son of heaven from the Northern Divine Region, this North Sea Sword Monarch actually used his own fighting spirit to ignite everyone's fighting spirit. No wonder the Sand Monarch always said that if a proud son of heaven is strong, then the Northern Divine Region is strong. If a proud son of heaven is weak, then the Northern Divine Region is weak. Among the bandits, a scar-faced leader with a fierce expression was the first to put away the sandworm horn in his hand. Then, he ordered, "Retreat immediately. This swarm of sandworms probably can't stop the North Sea Sword Monarch." F***ck, these people are lucky. There's actually a tough one among them. This group of bandits had cunning expressions. Seeing that the sandworms were unable to trap Yi Fei, they turned and left, swaggering away. In any case, there were many martial artists who had entered the desert. If they failed here, they could return and set up another ambush. They could always kill 1,000 or so people and make a fortune from the dead. At the same time, the bandits were not worried that Yi Fei would chase after them. This was because the desert had been affected by the battle between the great emperors and had become very strange. Ordinary martial artists would be attacked by the fire poison accumulated in the desert the moment they stepped on the ground. In mild cases, they would be afflicted with hundreds of illnesses. In severe cases, the fire poison would attack their hearts and cause their blood to dry up and die. This was also the reason why the bandits dared to run rampant in the desert. Other than them, ordinary martial artists would not be able to survive in the desert. However, they had forgotten one thing. As a proud son of heaven, Yi Fei was no ordinary martial artist. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Fei's figure constantly shuttled through the sandstorm, brutally smashing through layer after layer of sandstorm walls. At this moment, he finally realized how strange this sandstorm was. Not only was it as hot as fire, but when it came into contact with a martial artist's skin, it would also emit fire poison that would affect the circulation of a martial artist's vital essence. If it were any other proud son of heaven, they would definitely not pursue after the bandits when they realized this situation. However, Yi Fei was different. He still had the ancient beast mark that Wang Bai had given him. This beast mark was very special. It could allow Yi Fei to adapt to all kinds of environment. Even the cold air of the Millennium Cold Pond could not do anything to Yi Fei. Now that he was facing fire poison, how could Yi Fei retreat? Ancient beast mark, activate. After confirming that he had already rushed behind the sandworms, and that the martial artists on the sand boats would not be able to see him, Yi Fei did not hesitate and immediately activated the beast mark. A layer of mysterious and luxurious scale armor covered Yi Fei's body. However, this was no longer a scale armor that flowed like water. Instead, it was a layer of earthy yellow stone armor. It was like a rock that enveloped Yi Fei. At this moment, Yi Fei also looked like a stone man. He rushed out of the sandstorm and landed heavily on the ground. The entire ground emitted a loud rumbling sound, as if a huge boulder had landed on the ground. Those bandits who had been swaggering and leisurely retreating after their sneak attack failed all widened their eyes. They stared in horror at the stone-like Yi Fei. How is this possible? He actually broke through the encirclement of 100,000 sandworms so quickly. He can even walk on the sand. Some of the bandits' faces were filled with disbelief. Not good. He is a beast mark inheritor. He can even resist the fire poison in the quicksand. The desert chief, on the other hand, roared in shock. Then, without calling for his companions, he only cared about himself and tried to escape at the fastest speed in his life. It was also at this moment that the other bandits finally reacted. The leisurely look on their faces was no longer present. All of them hated that their parents had given them 2 more legs, preventing them from running fast enough. Chapter 599. Grievous news. In the end, the bandits were also humans. Since they were humans, they should also be affected by the fire poison in the desert and die from exhaustion. However, the bandits were able to live very well in the desert. This made the warriors in the outside world feel very strange. This was also the biggest secret of the bandits' survival. That was the beast mark inheritance. It turned out that there were no bandits in this desert 5,000 years ago. Other than the opening of the heaven-forsaken land every 30 years, very few warriors dared to enter, let alone walk and survive in it. However, the wisdom of humans was limitless. There were often warriors in the north region who were chased by their enemies and forced to escape into the desert. In order to survive, this group of people would do anything. Not only did they invent a sand boat, but they also found a sand boat. Among them, the most outstanding one was a bandit who accidentally found an ancient beast mark inheritance in a pile of ruins in the desert. After studying this beast mark inheritance, this bandit finally found a way to survive in the desert. That was to modify his own body. He modified his skin and legs to be like a sandworm. This way, even if he was a human, he would still be able to survive in the desert without being threatened by the fire poison. Using this method, that bandit quickly dominated the entire desert and obtained the title of Bandit King. This evil technique that he created to modify his body was naturally passed down. As a result, the desert became a place where bandits ran rampant. Countless evil people and demons who could not stay in the north region fled here and became bandit. As for ordinary warriors who relied on their modified bodies, the bandits were not particularly afraid of even prodigies. They were only afraid of warriors with strong physical bodies or warriors with beast mark inheritances. This was because these warriors either had special physiques or special abilities. They could quickly adapt to this extreme environment. Therefore, the bandits would try their best not to provoke these 2 types of cultivators if they could. However, Yi Fei possessed both types of cultivators. He had the war demon golden body and the ancient beast seal. He was simply the bane of the bandits. How could the bandits not be afraid? At this moment, all of them secretly hated that they were born with 2 more legs. Otherwise, they could run even faster. Yi Fei didn't know the secret of the bandits, but he was still angry when he saw the bandits trying to escape after failing to harm anyone. One had to know that those who could become bandits were either demons or villains. Only these 2 types of people would be accepted by the bandit. Every year, there were at least 800 martial artists who died at the hands of the desert bandits, if not 1,000. Every time the heaven-forsaken land opened, the number of martial artists who died at the hands of the desert bandits numbered in the thousands. When it came to bandits, it could be said that the entire northern region would gnash their teeth in anger. Of course, Yi Fei was no exception. If this group of people hadn't provoked him, he wouldn't have bothered with them. But since they had provoked him, and almost caused the death of the entire sand boat and hundreds of lives, Yi Fei would never give up on hunting them down. Trying to escape? Leave your lives behind first. Boom. Yi Fei took a step forward and his entire body turned into a gust of wind as he chased after the bandit leader who had escaped first. Along the way, when he passed by other bandits, Yi Fei didn't show any mercy. He killed every single one of them that came close. Even a 10th-level martial king couldn't resist Yi Fei's unrivaled martial king fighting strength. More than 10 bandits had been killed by Yi Fei in the span of a few breaths of time. Only the bandit leader was left. He was the fastest and the most cunning. He constantly circled around the various traps in the desert, trying to avoid Yi Fei's pursuit. Yi Fei couldn't be bothered to say more. He directly took out Shen Tu Ming's map and identified the locations of the traps and quicksand clearly. He was even more proficient than the bandit leader. Finally, relying on his familiarity with the terrain, Yi Fei finally forced the bandit leader into a dangerous quicksand after an hour. Run. Continue to run if you can. If you want to play, I'll play with you anytime. Yi Fei held the map with a strange expression on his face. This Shen Tu Ming really had some tricks up his sleeve. Where did he get such a detailed map of the bandits' terrain? Sword King, please spare my life. I was blind to have framed you. Please be magnanimous and let me go. The bandit leader was already crying bitterly. He was on the verge of breaking down. Those who didn't know better would think that Yi Fei was the bandit and that the bandit leader was the victim. Let you go? If I didn't have some tricks up my sleeve, those 100,000 sandworms would have killed me. Tell me, why should I let you go? Yi Fei said coldly. Anyone could kill a bandit. He didn't hesitate to waste time chasing after the bandit leader because he wanted to eliminate the source of trouble. Sensing Yi Fei's murderous intent, the bandit leader was even more terrified. The more heinous a person was, the more terrified they would be when facing death. The bandit leader didn't want to die, so he could only grit his teeth. He suddenly raised his head and said loudly, North Sea Sword King, if you let me go, I can tell you a huge secret. Tell me. I'll consider it. Yi Fei was still indifferent. I took a huge risk to tell you, and you're only considering it? The bandit leader was so angry that his nose was crooked. You don't have to tell me. I'm not interested in hearing your dirty secrets. Yi Fei couldn't be bothered to say anything more to the bandit. He had already lost his patience. The bandit leader was even more terrified. He hurriedly shouted, North Sea Sword King, your title was bestowed by the Northern Ocean Kingdom, right? Don't you care that the 4th prince of the Northern Ocean Kingdom, Zhu Zhen, and the eldest daughter of the Northern Heavenly King, Beigong Chun, were captured by us? What did you say? Zhu Zhen and Beigong Chun were captured by bandits? Boom. Yi Fei finally couldn't remain calm. He had long been curious. With the strength of Zhu Zhen, Beigong Chun, and the rest, why hadn't they come over when the Forsaken Land opened? He also hadn't met anyone he knew on the way. This was very strange in itself. Who knew that Zhu Zhen and the rest had actually been captured by bandits? What's going on? You're not lying on purpose to trick me into letting you go, right? Yi Fei didn't dare to fully believe this person's words. Bandits were famous for being treacherous and cunning. Sword King, you're a prodigy. Even if I had 10 times the courage, I wouldn't dare to lie to you. I can swear that I'm telling the truth. That's right, we also caught a martial artist from the Northern Ocean Kingdom who was escaping. If you don't believe me, I can bring you to ask him. The bandit leader pleaded pitifully. After taking a closer look at this person, Yi Fei's face turned ugly. He realized that this person didn't seem to be lying. Could it be that the fourth prince and the rest had really been captured? If it was true, he really couldn't ignore this matter. After all, the Northern Ocean Kingdom's king had helped him a lot. Now that his son was in trouble, how could he just stand by and watch? Where is he? Bring me there immediately. Alright, you better not play any tricks. I know all the information about your bandit. Yi Fei deliberately shook the map in his hand. The bandit leader's face turned ashen when he saw the map. He was shocked. It's actually a commander-level map. Damn it, which commander-level commander leaked our bandit topographic map to an outsider? Damn it. The bandit leader's face was ferocious and malevolent. Helpless in front of Yi Fei, he couldn't resist at all. He could only dispel his other thoughts and bring Yi Fei to a hidden sand dune. Sword King, that person is hiding in the sand cave. As the bandit leader spoke, he had already walked into the cave. He carried out a fiery figure and placed him on the ground. Chapter 600. The Secret of the State. Qin Bing, wake up. Yi Fei could no longer care about the bandit leader when he saw Qin Bing lying unconscious on the ground. He walked over and quickly channeled a stream of vital essence into Qin Bing's body. Although his vital essence was strong, the fire poison in Qin Bing's body was too strong. The vital essence he channeled could only sustain Qin Bing's life. It was not an easy task to wake Qin Bing up. It seems like I have to think of a way to remove the fire poison in Qin Bing's body. Yi Fei's expression turned serious. He immediately wanted to ask the bandit leader if there was a way to remove the fire poison. However, the bandit leader was very cunning. He had released Qin Bing to divert Yi Fei's attention. Just as Yi Fei's attention was diverted to Qin Bing, the bandit leader laughed sinisterly. He charged into the vast desert like lightning. He did not believe that Yi Fei would give up on saving Qin Bing and chase after him. Yi Fei did not chase after him. Firstly, the blood in Qin Bing's body had almost dried up. After all, they were friends and they were both from Beiyang country. Yi Fei could not leave him in the lurch. Secondly, he could not be bothered to chase after the bandit leader. He had already sensed that Qian Xiaolong's sand boat was nearby. In the end, Yi Fei had tried to save everyone. Many martial artists had seen with their own eyes how Yi Fei had rushed into the sandworms that filled the sky and then fell into this terrifying desert. Young people were all hot-blooded. If Yi Fei had not broken through the sandworms' encirclement and killed the bandit controlling the sandworms, everyone would not have been able to escape. Therefore, when Qian Xiaolong learned that Yi Fei had entered the desert, he did not hesitate and led his sand boat to break through the sandworms' encirclement. He rushed over to help Yi Fei. The sand boat that came over happened to see a bandit running out of a hole in the sand. Not good, there are bandits. Fire! Boom! In order to deal with the bandits, the sand boats were equipped with weapons. When they saw a bandit trying to escape, a spirit crystal cannon on the sand boat immediately opened fire, forming a line of fire and blasting the bandit to pieces on the spot. Even until his death, the bandit did not expect Qian Xiaolong's sand boat to arrive so quickly. After killing the last bandit, Qian Xiaolong led several experts from the sand boat and quickly rushed over on a small sand boat. "Brother Yi, are you all right?" "That's right, Sword King. We're here to help you." Why is there another person by the Sword Monarch's side?" Qian Xiaolong rushed over with his men and found that there was another person in the cave besides Yi Fei. They were a little surprised. Seeing Qian Xiaolong and his men, Yi Fei was pleasantly surprised. "Boss Qian, you came at the right time. This is my friend. He was captured by the bandits and was severely poisoned. Do you have any way to save him?" Yi Fei rushed out of the cave with Qin Bing in his arms. Of course, before he came out, he had already removed the beast mark. It was not that he did not trust these people, but the beast mark inheritance was his trump card. If he could not expose it, he would try his best not to. What? This person is Brother Ye's friend? He was poisoned by the fire? Fortunately, I have elixirs on me that can cure the fire poison. Knowing the relationship between Qin Bing and Yi Fei, Qian Xiaolong would not be stingy. When he quickly returned to the sand boat, he had already ordered people to prepare a large amount of elixirs to cure the fire poison. Yi Fei took these elixirs and fed them to Qin Bing. He then channeled his true yuan for about an hour. Finally, he felt that the blood in Qin Bing's body that had dried up was replenished. Cough cough. Where is this place? Didn't I die? Is this hell? Qin Bing coughed violently. Once his blood was replenished, he finally woke up from his coma. Brother Qin, you are finally awake. Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief and slowly withdrew his palms from Qin Bing's back. Qin Bing was shocked to discover that not only was he not dead, but he had also been saved by Yi Fei. 2 streams of hot tears suddenly flowed from his eyes. Thump! Qin Bing ignored his injuries and immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Yi Fei. Yi Fei, save me! The 4th prince and the eldest princess have both been captured by the bandit. Hundreds of Beiyang martial artists have been wiped out. Long Gang has been captured, Zhang Dezhuang has been captured, and Beigong Yu has also been captured. My brother, Qin Chuan, has died in battle. Qin Bing burst into tears. His eyes were filled with fear and hatred. Yi Fei was so shocked that he took a few steps back. What? Long Gang and Zhang Dezhuang have been captured? Your brother, Qin Chuan, has died in battle? Some of these people were friends he had made in the imperial capital, while others were strangers he had met by chance. But without a doubt they were all acquainted with Yi Fei. But these people had all died in the desert. What about the Taishan Holy Land? Jing Wushou, the 10th prince, Shifeng, and Luo Shi, would they? No, absolutely not. I will never allow such a thing to happen. Qin Bing, tell me what happened. Why did you suffer such heavy casualties? Yi Fei grabbed Qin Bing's shoulder and shouted. His heart was in a mess. This was also the first time he had learned that so many people he knew were in danger at the same time. Qin Bing's face was full of pain. He clenched his fists, and blood flowed from his palms to the ground. It's the Beiyuan country. They colluded with the bandits and killed our entire ship. What, the Beiyuan country? Yi Fei was shocked. After questioning Qin Bing for a long time, he finally understood why the Beiyang country had suffered such heavy losses. It turned out that it was because of him. He had killed Duan Lang and the Golden Tribe King, causing the Beiyuan country to suffer heavy casualties and become the laughingstock of the northern region. The Beiyuan country naturally wanted revenge. However, after losing the Golden Tribe King and 500,000 wolf cavalrymen, the Beiyuan country was greatly weakened in a short period of time. It was impossible for them to fight the Beiyang country. Therefore, the Beiyuan country monarch came up with a vicious plan. Since it was impossible for the two countries to fight, the Beiyuan country might as well take advantage of the opening of the Forsaken Land to bribe the bandits in the desert and kill many warriors of the Beiyang country. As for the 4th Prince Zhu Zhen and the rest, they would never have dreamt that Northern Yuan Kingdom would actually take the risk of angering the entire northern region and collude with the bandit. Naturally, as long as the Beiyang country's sand boats entered the desert, they would be fiercely attacked by the bandit. Especially the sand boat that the 4th Prince Zhu Zhen was on. It was the main target of the bandit. In order to successfully capture Zhu Zhen and the others and use them to threaten the Beiyang country monarch, the bandits gathered most of their forces and fought the Beiyang country's sand boats for a month. Qin Bing was captured in the final battle. However, due to the shock of his younger brother Qin Chuan's death, Qin Bing suddenly burst out and escaped while being escorted. However, he was already seriously injured and was attacked by the fire poison. Not long after he escaped, he was discovered by the bandit leader and captured again, until Yi Fei appeared and saved him. Yi Fei, I'm begging you. You must save the fourth prince and the others. Otherwise, the Beiyang country will have no future. Qin Bing said and was about to kneel to Yi Fei again. Chapter 601. Ambush Qin Bing, don't worry. The title of North Sea Sword Monarch was bestowed upon me by the king of Beiyang country. The matters of Beiyang country are my matters. I guarantee you that I will definitely rescue them. Yi Fei's expression was a little cold. After all, the title of North Sea Sword Monarch represented the North Sea and Beiyang country. Now that he heard that Beiyuan country had used such despicable means to target Beiyang country, Yi Fei was really angry. Furthermore, Yi Fei felt that he was partly responsible for Beiyuan country's actions. This time, I am duty-bound. I will definitely rescue Zhu Zhen and the rest. Yi Fei clenched his fists tightly. Qin Bing finally relaxed when he heard this. He muttered, thank you. Yi Fei, I'll leave their matters to you. Dong. Before Qin Bing could finish his sentence, he couldn't hold on any longer and fainted again. Yi Fei hurriedly supported Qin Bing. After checking him, he found that Qin Bing was only mentally exhausted and that the fire poison in his body had been removed. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief and settle Qin Bing in a room to recuperate. Yi Fei walked back to the deck. It was already late at night and the surroundings were dark. Qian Xiaolong parked the sand boat in a safe space and started repairing the parts of the sand boat that had been damaged by the sandworms. Faint whispers of laughter could be heard from the deck. However, when Yi Fei walked out, all the chatter and laughter immediately disappeared. The hundreds of cultivators all stood up and looked at Yi Fei with faces full of respect. During the battle during the day, Yi Fei had used his own actions to ignite their fighting spirit. At the same time, he had won their hearts. They also respected Yi Fei from the bottom of their hearts. Sword Monarch, the North Sea Sword Monarch has come out. It's all thanks to the Sword Monarch this time. Otherwise, we would have become food for the sandworms. Please accept our bow. Many warriors came over to bow, but Yi Fei hurriedly waved his hand to stop them. Brothers, there's no need for this. As the saying goes, we are all brothers in the world. When we're outside, it's only right that we help each other. Yi Fei also cupped his hands politely. Many martial artists were taken aback. Brothers everywhere? He had never heard of this before. Who would have thought that not only was the North Sea Sword Monarch outstanding in martial arts, but his literary talent was also remarkable. As expected of the North region's genius, the way the warriors looked at Yi Fei was no longer one of respect, but of worship. However, Yi Fei did not say much to these people. He walked up to the deck and went straight to Qian Xiaolong. Boss Qian, I have a favor to ask of you, Yi Fei said. Brother Yi, you asked me to take good care of your friend. You can rest assured about that. But are you sure it's okay for you to go to the desert alone to save someone? Qian Xiaolong looked at Yi Fei shrewdly, but there was a hint of worry in his eyes. If there is a problem, I have to go. The Northern Ocean Monarch is my benefactor. Many of the Northern Ocean Monarchs are my friends. If a friend is in trouble, even if there is a mountain of knives and a sea of fire in front of me, I have to go in and take a risk, Yi Fei said coldly. He did not ask how Qian Xiaolong knew of his plan. Qian Xiaolong nodded and agreed with Yi Fei's approach. He did not ask how Yi Fei would survive after leaving the sand boat. He knew that since Yi Fei dared to do this, he must have some kind of confidence. Brother, please rest assured. Your friend is my friend. He will receive the best care, Qian Xiaolong promised. Then I'll leave it to you. Oh right, this is for you. With it, you won't have to worry about being surrounded by bandit. Yi Fei thought for a moment and gave the map to Qian Xiaolong. This way, Qin Bing's safety could be guaranteed. When Qian Xiaolong picked up the map and looked at it, he was shocked. It's actually a map of the bandits' defenses. If one is not a bandit commander or above, one will not be able to obtain this. Brother, you have given me a generous gift. Qian Xiaolong beamed with joy. He almost treated this map like a treasure. Yi Fei was stunned. Why was the bandit commander's map hidden so well in Shin Tu Ming's ring? Could it be that Shin Tu Ming had killed a bandit commander before? Yi Fei was a little puzzled. However, now was not the time to think about this. Compared to this, he was more anxious to save Zhu Zhen and the others. After all, Long Gang and Zhang Dezhuang were Yi Fei's close friends in the imperial capital. He did not wish for anything to happen to Long Gang and the others. Qin Bing said that after they were captured, the bandits directly said that they would be sent to Shang City. If I want to save them, I have to think of a way to sneak into Shang City. Yi Fei thought to himself. Then, according to his memory on the map, he hurried towards Shang City. This was to prevent being discovered by the bandit. On the way, Yi Fei thought of a good idea. He simply put on a bandit's uniform. After all, the desert's terrain was special. Other than the bandits, normal warriors would not be able to withstand the desert's fire poison and walk on the sand. Therefore, as long as Yi Fei put on a bandit's uniform, it would be easy for him to disguise himself as a bandit. What he was troubled about now was that Shang City was the bandits' lair. The checks would definitely be very strict. If he wanted to sneak in, even if he disguised himself as a bandit, it would not be easy. Just as Yi Fei was thinking about it, rumble! The sand dune in front of him suddenly rose and a few gray figures appeared. When they saw Yi Fei, they scolded him. What bad luck! We are here to ambush and catch sandworms. Why did a hothead come out and step into our trap? Yi Fei was speechless when he realized that he had been too engrossed in his thoughts. He had almost stepped into a trap set up by the bandit. Looks like I wasn't careful enough, Yi Fei thought to himself. Seeing Yi Fei standing at the edge of the trap without saying a word, the bandits were angered again. They jumped out and pointed at Yi Fei's nose, scolding, Kid, where are you from? Why haven't we seen you before? Also, why are you alone? Don't tell me you're a deserter? Deserter? Yi Fei was very surprised. Could there be deserters among the bandits? Seeing Yi Fei's stunned expression, the bandits were delighted. At the same time, they smiled maliciously and surrounded him. Haha, there's no need to ask. We, the bandits, travel in group. This kid is alone and stuttering. He must be a deserter. The commander said that if we catch a deserter, we will be rewarded 100,000 spirit crystals. If we kill one, the reward will be the same. Everyone, what do you think? Should we kill him or take him back and ask for a reward? The bandits exchanged glances. There was an obvious killing intent in their eyes. Yi Fei finally regained his composure. He suddenly had a good idea. He quickly retreated in fear and said, Brothers, please don't kill me. I'm here to deliver a message. Our commander has captured a deserter from the Northern Ocean Kingdom. He doesn't know what to do with him, so he specially sent me here to deliver the message. What? A prince of the Northern Ocean Kingdom? This is a great merit. I really envy your commander. How about this? Brother, it's obvious that this is your first time in Sand King City. You must not be familiar with many things. We can bring you to see the commander, but you can't possibly let us come here for nothing. Seeing that killing someone in exchange for a reward was not an option, the bandits refused to give up. They stared at Yi Fei like he was a fat sheep. Yi Fei naturally understood their intentions. They were jealous of his merit and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to gain some benefit. Fine, with these people bringing him into the city, he would not be suspected. Brothers, what are you saying? How can I let you come here for nothing? Brothers, I picked up this pile of spirit crystals on the way here. Take a look and see if you drop them. Yi Fei generously tossed out a large pile of spirit crystals. The bandits' eyes immediately lit up like wolves. Haha, brother, thank you. These spirit crystals were indeed dropped by us. It's all thanks to brother that we picked them up. Chapter 602. Envoy. Thank you very much, big brothers. Along the way, Yi Fei said all sorts of sweet nothings and flattery. He quickly became familiar with these bandit. Big brothers, our leader has made a great contribution this time. Will the Sand King meet me personally? Yi Fei looked excited, but he was secretly worried. He could use the beast mark to deceive ordinary bandits and commanders. However, Yi Fei was not confident that he could deceive the Sand Bandit King. Haha, kid, you are quite ambitious. The Sand King is in seclusion all year round. He is about to break through to the martial sage realm. Ambushing the Beiyang country is just a small matter. How could you disturb the Sand King? A talkative bandit said. Yi Fei immediately leaned over and asked, Where are the martial artists from the Beiyang country locked up? Can I go and take a look? Humph, what martial artists? Remember, the ones we captured were all princes. The bandit suddenly glared at Yi Fei. Yi Fei was speechless. He understood that these bandits were trying to lie about their military exploit. After all, between capturing an ordinary martial artist and capturing a prince would definitely be more meritorious. What if the commanders discover us? Yi Fei continued to ask calmly. The bandits laughed loudly and did not answer Yi Fei's question. They quickly brought Yi Fei to the Sand King city. Perhaps the bandits were used to running amok in the desert. They were vicious when they killed, but they were very lax when it came to guarding. Seeing Yi Fei talking and laughing with the bandits, the guards did not even bother to interrogate them. They let Yi Fei and the others into the city. Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief. I did not expect the bandits to be so lax. However, this is good. It will be easier for me to rescue them. Hence, Yi Fei continued to remain calm and collected. He followed the bandits to a very spacious hall. Before he entered, he heard loud laughter from afar. Ha ha ha, brother, since you are the envoy of Beiyuan State, if I don't give you face and drink a few cups, wouldn't that be disrespecting our Sand King? Seventh Commander, before I came here, His Majesty said that compared to saving face with the bandits, it's better to talk about benefits. It's more practical. I've already drunk a lot of wine, but what about the people of Beiyang? Seventh Commander, you should leave them to me. Yi Fei and a few bandits walked into the hall. The first thing they saw was a middle-aged warrior from the Northern Plains Kingdom. He was impatiently questioning the bandit commander. After all, the Northern Plains country was one of the 4 strongest countries in the northern region. The middle-aged warrior was an envoy personally sent by the king of Northern Plains. He thought highly of himself, so how could he call a bunch of bandits brothers? He had only one purpose in coming here, and that was to retrieve Zhu Zhen and the others as soon as possible and bring them back to Beiyuan State. The 7th Commander was a little angry at the Beiyuan envoy's obvious disdain for the bandits. He pulled a long face and said, Prince of the Golden Tribe, don't forget that it was your Beiyuan State who asked for our help. Our brothers suffered heavy losses in order to capture the warriors from Beiyuan State. Can't we ask a few more questions before we hand them over and find out what these people are for? Humph, you want to know my intentions, don't you? There's no harm in telling you. Our king has already planned this. That Yi Fei killed Duan Lang and my father, and even killed 500,000 soldiers of Beiyuan State. This is a great humiliation to Beiyuan State. His Majesty has ordered that we can't deal with Beiyang State for the time being, but we must kill the North Sea Sword King. As long as we capture Zhu Zhen and the other elites of Beiyang State, we can use the king of Northern Plains country to threaten them. The king can then use them to threaten the Northern Ocean King. He can either watch as his son is killed, or he has to personally kill Yi Fei and everyone from the Yi clan, so that they can be buried with the dead soldiers of the Northern Ocean Kingdom. The Prince of the Golden Tent's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Yi Fei walked in and happened to hear this. He was shocked. Ha ha, what a vicious plan! You want the king of Northern Plains country to kill the North Sea Sword King he bestowed upon himself, destroying his own genius. Then you use this point to make the newly promoted sword maniac Wu Jun fight to the death with the king of Northern Plains country. You are indeed vicious, ruthless, and insidious. The seventh commander gave the Prince of the Golden Tent a big thumbs up. The Prince of the Golden Tent also had a smug look on his face. He snorted and said, "If you want to win, you must use any means necessary. Now that you know our purpose, shouldn't you hand him over to us? We won't shortchange you." "Do you think we, the bandits, lack money?" The seventh commander suddenly smiled ferociously. "Then what do you want?" The Prince of the Golden Tent was stunned. "We want resources, all kinds of resources, food, clothes, daily necessities, toys, and of course weapons, elixirs, and women. We want to secretly trade with Beiyuan State. This is also the Sand King's idea." The seventh commander finally revealed the true purpose of the bandit. The desert's environment was harsh and the bandits lacked everything. The northern region's warriors hated the bandit. In the past, the bandits could only smuggle goods. But once they reached an agreement with the Northern Plains country, they could openly transport goods through the Northern Plains country. This way, not only would the bandits' lives be better, but their strength would also be greatly improved. Yi Fei stood aside and watched coldly as the seventh commander and the Prince of the Golden Tent bargained fiercely. He felt lucky that he was here. Otherwise, if the bandits handed the fourth prince and the others over to Beiyuan State, it would definitely be a disaster. No matter how much the king of Beiyang State valued him, who could guarantee that he would not attack Beihai Sea to save his son? Both sides would kill each other. It seems that this time, not only do I have to save Zhuzhen, but I also have to find a way to destroy the alliance between the bandits and Beiyuan State. Yi Fei thought to himself. At this moment, after a fierce argument, the Prince of the Golden Tent finally made a concession. "Seventh Commander, Beiyuan State can trade with you, but only for a year. Also, we will not trade with you directly, but through a middleman." "Fine, a year it is." The seventh commander nodded with satisfaction. The bandits were notorious. If Beiyuan State cooperated with them once, their reputation would be tarnished as well. By then, it would be difficult for Beiyuan State to get rid of them. The Prince of the Golden Tent naturally understood this. After making a concession, his face turned ugly. "Seventh Commander, the terms have been negotiated. Where are the people? Now you should hand them over to us?" "Ha ha ha, of course." The seventh commander laughed sinisterly. However, when he turned his head, he saw a few more bandits in the hall. One of them was very unfamiliar. The seventh commander was instantly enraged. "How dare you eavesdrop on my secrets? Seventh commander, please spare us. It was this guy who forced us to bring him to you." These bandits betrayed Yi Fei without hesitation. Yi Fei was not angry. He bowed and said, "Commander, please no. Our leader has captured a martial artist from Beiyang State outside. I think he is the emperor." "What? We have captured another genius from Beiyang State? Well done. Let your leader bring him here. I will reward him handsomely." The seventh commander suddenly interrupted Yi Fei before he could finish his sentence. Yi Fei was speechless. He felt that these bandits were getting more and more shameless. Chapter 603. Assassination. The Prince of the Golden Tribe glared at Yi Fei unhappily and said coldly, "Since you are a heavenly talent, the Beiyuan State will naturally accept you. We will pay you according to the heavenly talent's remuneration." Haha, the Prince of the Golden Tribe is really straightforward. Let's go and get him now. The seventh commander smiled with satisfaction. Seventh commander, can I go with you? Yi Fei was waiting for this moment, so he quickly stepped forward and interrupted. The seventh commander and the Prince of the Golden Tribe both stared at Yi Fei with cold eyes. Who do you think you are? How dare you go with us? Seventh commander, you don't know. I was chased by the fourth prince of the Beiyang Kingdom, Zhu Zhen, so I escaped into the desert. That damn fourth prince, it wasn't enough for him to kill me. He also killed all my concubines. Now that he is in our hands, how can I not take revenge? Yi Fei made an expression of deep hatred. The seventh commander was stunned when he heard that. Only then did he restrain the anger in his heart and say, Fine. Seeing that you have guts, come with us and see for yourself. The seventh commander couldn't refuse Yi Fei's request. First of all, he just closed a big deal and was in a good mood. Second of all, Yi Fei sounded too pitiful. All his concubines were killed. What a tragic experience. If he didn't let Yi Fei take revenge, it wouldn't make sense. He might even disappoint his subordinates, which would be detrimental to the development of the bandits. So the seventh commander decided to take Yi Fei to vent his anger. The Prince of the Golden Tribe couldn't say anything, so he nodded in agreement. Soon, Yi Fei followed the Prince of the Golden Tribe and the seventh commander into a secret underground prison. In the prison, Yi Fei saw the imprisoned Beiyuan warriors. There were 35 of them, including Zhu Zhen, Beigong Chun, Long Gang, Zhang Dazhuang, and the others. They were all in special shackles. Their genuine essence must have been sealed. Hey, Beigong Chun, Beigong Yu, I didn't expect you two to be in there too. Ha ha, great. When I asked for your hand in marriage, you dared to refuse. I didn't expect you to have such a day. The Prince of the Golden Tribe looked at Beigong Chun with a scorching face. Beigong Chun didn't respond. But Beigong Yu looked at the prince in horror and said, It's you. Beiyuan state colluded with the bandit. If this news spreads, you will be despised by all the warriors of the northern region. How dare you? You are already a prisoner. How dare you be so stubborn? If you say one more bad word about us, I will kill you. The seventh commander was about to lose his temper. The Prince of the Golden Tribe hurriedly stopped him. Seventh commander, it's a waste to kill them. Let me deal with these two women. They rejected me back then and dared to pretend to be noble in front of me. Today, I will play with them in front of all the warriors of Beiyang State. What? Prince of the Golden Tribe, you have such a hobby? The seventh commander was shocked. Even the most ferocious of bandits felt that the Prince of the Golden Tribe was a bastard. Beigong Chun and Beigong Yu turned pale. Beigong Chun said coldly, Prince of the Golden Tribe, you are not a man. You are a beast. Ha ha, I am a beast. So what? Beigong Chun, didn't you look down on men? Aren't you arrogant? Don't worry. After I play with you in front of everyone, I will give you to the bandits as a slave. We would rather die then. Beigong Chun was as unyielding as ever. She bit her tongue and committed suicide. Seeing this, Yi Fei could no longer hide. He walked past them and pointed at Beigong Chun and Beigong Yu, scolding them, Shut up! It's your fortune to be liked by the Prince of the Golden Tribe and the Commander. How dare you resist? Hearing this familiar voice, Beigong Chun, Beigong Yu, Zhu Zhen, Long Gang and the others all looked up in disbelief and stared at Yi Fei. Yi Fei hurriedly blinked his eyes at them. He pointed at Beigong Chun again and shouted, Beigong Chun, it was your father who killed many of my concubines. Today I will take revenge. Commander, please give me the order to go in, strip them naked, and bring them out. Beast, don't do anything rash. We would rather die than be humiliated. Beigong Chun and Beigong Yu screamed at the same time. Their voices were weak, but it made the Prince of the Golden Tribe's beast blood boil. He suddenly felt that Yi Fei was pleasing to the eye, so he nodded proudly and said, You're not bad. Go in and help me subdue them. After I'm done, you may get some soup. Thank you, Prince of the Golden Tribe. Yi Fei had a flattered expression on his face as he looked at the seventh commander. The seventh commander laughed and threw the key to Yi Fei, saying, "Go, you're really smart. After this matter, don't go back. Stay by my side and be my follower." Thank you, Commander. Yi Fei was speechless. He didn't expect to be valued as an accomplice. Saving people was more important. Yi Fei opened the cell with the key. Of course, he was scolded by Zhu Jin, Long Gang and the others. Beigong Chun and Beigong Yu also screamed in horror. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Fei rushed over. Without saying a word, he tore the shackles that imprisoned their genuine vitality into pieces. Then he rushed to Zhu Jin. Only then did the Prince of the Golden Tribe and the seventh commander feel that something was wrong. Those shackles were special shackles used to imprison martial kings. Even they couldn't break them with their bare hands. But Yi Fei did it. Something's wrong. You're not a bandit. Who are you? The seventh commander was the first to notice Yi Fei's abnormality. He roared and was about to rush over to stop Yi Fei. Do it! Seeing that his identity was exposed, Yi Fei tore off Zhu Jin's shackles again. Then he suddenly turned around and smashed the cell in front of him. The cell was smashed into pieces. You're courting death! The seventh commander roared in anger. He felt that Yi Fei was too bold. How dare he sneak into the group of bandits without being discovered? Boom! A hard fist like a boulder suddenly appeared in front of Yi Fei with a rumbling sound. Yi Fei didn't dodge. He exhaled and suddenly reached out to grab the fist. Boom! The entire dungeon shook violently. Yi Fei's hand had already grasped the seventh commander's fist tightly. He couldn't move at all. The seventh commander's expression changed. A trace of fear appeared in his eyes. Who are you? Why are you going against us bandits? Why? Because I don't like you. Die! Yi Fei roared. There was nothing to talk about with bandit. There was only one word to say. Kill. Brat, you're too arrogant. Enraged, he roared and unleashed all the power he could muster to punch Yi Fei again. However, Yi Fei didn't even try to evade. Instead, he punched out with his own fist, smashing into the man's head. Bang! The seventh commander's head exploded into pieces. Before the seventh commander's fist could hit Yi Fei, it was neutralized by Yi Fei's battle demon golden body. How is this possible? The fourth prince Zhu Jin and the others had just removed the shackles of Long Gang and the others. In the end, Yi Fei had already killed his opponent in the blink of an eye. They were all shocked. One had to know that those were bandit commanders. Even they couldn't block Yi Fei's punch. Chapter 604. Sand King Yi Fei, your current realm is? The fourth prince Zhu Jin couldn't help but ask curiously. Probably equivalent to an invincible martial king. But my martial will is still lacking by one level. It's a bit of a failure. Yi Fei sighed. Long Gang and the others almost vomited blood. Even an invincible martial king like you has to sigh. Then how would we dare to show our faces in the future? It's a pity that Qin Bing is dead, Zhang Dazhuang said in a muffled voice. Tears flowed down his cheeks uncontrollably. Long Gang's eyes also dimmed. The casualties of the Northern Ocean Kingdom's warriors were too great. Out of the hundreds of warriors on the entire sand boat, only about 30 of them managed to survive. Yi Fei didn't know what to say. He could only force a smile and comfort them. Don't worry. I don't know about the others, but Qin Bing is fine. Thanks to him, I knew that you were in trouble. What? Qin Bing is fine? Long Gang was shocked. Zhang Dazhuang was also excited. They were about to ask Yi Fei about the details. Suddenly, they heard a scream. They turned around and saw that Beigong Chun was fighting with the prince of the Golden Tent. Beigong Chun had kicked the prince's vitals. Everyone heard the sound of something breaking. The Golden Tribe prince was in so much pain that he wanted to die. He collapsed on the ground with a face full of regret. He rolled his eyes and fainted from the pain. Beigong Yu was not satisfied yet. She rushed up angrily and stomped on the unconscious prince of the golden tent a few times, waking him up from the pain. This woman from the Beigong family is too cruel. Long Gang and Zhang Dezhuang were covered in cold sweat. Yi Fei also felt a chill. Now is not the time to talk about this. Yi Fei, what should we do now? Zhu Zhen's face was full of anxiety. After all, everyone was trapped in the bandits' nest. Originally, Zhu Zhen's status was the highest here. But now, without a doubt, everyone regarded Yi Fei as the absolute backbone. Yi Fei did not decline and instructed Beigong Chun, don't kill this golden tent prince yet. Beiyuan country's sand boat is parked outside. Let him take you there and then escape from Shang City. Alright, bring this with you. After some thought, Yi Fei tossed the dead bandit commander's spatial ring to Zhu Zhen and said in a low voice, "There should be a map of the bandits' defenses in here. Take it and you'll be able to avoid the bandits' pursuit and rush straight to the Forsaken Land." "Yi Fei, are you not coming with us?" When Long Gang and Zhang Dezhuang heard these orders, they immediately became anxious. If Yi Fei could take the risk to save them, how could they escape alone? "If we're leaving together. If we're staying together." The young master of the West Prince's mansion stood up and said excitedly. Yi Fei's expression was very serious. He shook his head and said, "I can't go with you. I have to stay behind to cover your retreat. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape." But, this time, even Beigong Yu, who disliked Yi Fei the most, became anxious. The fourth prince, Zhu Zhen, hurriedly grabbed Beigong Yu's hand and shook his head. He looked at Yi Fei with a serious expression. "Everyone, listen to Yi Fei. Yi Fei is an unrivaled martial king. If he wants to leave, the bandits will not be able to stop him. On the other hand, if we stay, we will only be a burden to Yi Fei. Leaving is our best option." Zhu Zhen's expression was very serious. Only then did everyone stop insisting. Immediately Yi Fei took the lead, followed by Zhu Zhen and the rest. Everyone rushed out of the underground prison like a swarm of bees. The bandits outside also felt that something was wrong at this time. The sound of the bugle horn for the bandits to gather their men could be heard everywhere. "Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Quickly report to the commander. Someone has escaped from the prison. Not good, they captured the Beiyuan country's prince. Quickly stop them, don't let them escape." Rumble. The entire Shang City was filled with the sound of heavy footsteps of the bandits gathering. More than 10 terrifying figures were charging towards them at the fastest speed possible. Where did this junior come from? How dare he cause trouble in our Shang City? "It's the commander has come out." The bandits who had gathered all cheered. Hearing these cheers, Yi Fei's lips curled into a cold smile. He guessed that Zhu Zhen and the rest had already escaped onto the sand boat. Immediately Yi Fei stopped in his tracks. Suddenly, a blazing sword light appeared on his body. Very quickly, this sword light was like a huge cloud of fire, covering the heavens and earth and burning everything. Sky Destroyer sword, burning sky style. Boom! Yi Fei slashed out with his sword. The air immediately became extremely hot. Under the sword light, a large number of bandits were turned into raging flames. They screamed and fell to the ground. "Junior, stop it! How dare you go against us bandits? We will tear you to pieces." The bandits who had rushed over were furious. Not only had they lost their hostages, but under Yi Fei's sword fire, more than 100 bandits had been mercilessly killed in a short span of time. One had to know that since the establishment of Shang City, there had never been such an unforeseen event. How could the commanders not be angry? They also didn't give Yi Fei a chance to continue killing. A 3-armed bandit commander was already roaring angrily. He was the first to charge towards Yi Fei. "Kid, die. Watch me slash the heavenly river with 3 slashes. I don't care if it's 3 slashes or 10 slashes. I only need 1 slash to send you down the river." Yi Fei didn't wait for the commander's sword light to come down. A huge flaming sword had already appeared in his hand. The flaming sword filled the sky and slashed forward. In just a breath's time, the commander was cut into 2. His head was separated from his body. Boom! When the commander's body exploded into sparks, the other commanders who had rushed over couldn't believe their eyes. 13 was actually killed in a single slash. What kind of sword technique is that? It's so terrifying. Who is this kid? When did Beiyang country produce such a powerhouse? Beiyang country. He uses the sword. I know. He is the 5th elite, the North Sea Sword Monarch Yi Fei. Suddenly, the last commander roared furiously. Yi Fei had been in the desert for many days. So many days had been enough for Shen Tuming to send the news back. When they found out that the person in front of them was the North Sea Sword Monarch, the remaining commanders all went crazy. They didn't even bother chasing after the fleeing Beiyang country marshalists. Yi Fei. He is Yi Fei, the North Sea Sword Monarch. I heard that he has the Emperor's ring on him. Kill him at all costs. Also, report the news of Yi Fei to the Sand Monarch. Dozens of pairs of red eyes stared at Yi Fei. Yi Fei found it very strange. Does this group of bandits have spies in Quicksand City? Otherwise, how would they know that I have the Emperor's ring on me? Then, another wave of terrifying pressure washed over him. At the same time, Yi Fei sensed that a terrifying consciousness had locked onto him the moment his identity was exposed. When they felt this pressure, the bandits, who had been a little flustered, all roared excitedly. It's the Sand Monarch! Long live the Sand Monarch! Ha ha ha! I didn't expect the Sand Monarch to be alerted so quickly. This kid is dead meat. The Sand Monarch must be after this kid's Emperor's ring. Let's surround him. We can't let him escape. The moment the Sand King appeared, more than a dozen commanders and thousands of bandits surrounded Yi Fei in high spirits. They roared fervently and fervently. Chapter 605. Battle Sand King. The moment the Sand King appeared, all the bandits in Sand King City roared in anger. They stopped attacking Yi Fei. Thousands of ferocious bandits and more than a dozen leaders roared as they formed a huge circle around Yi Fei. In the middle of the circle was an old, majestic, and sinister-looking white-haired old man. The old man walked over step by step, and with every step he took, the quicksand actually flowed and spun rhythmically with his footstep. Whoosh! Without any warning, the entire Sand King City was filled with howling winds. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere. The sky and earth turned pitch black. The vast expanse of yellow sand was grabbed by the old man's large hands and formed into 4 tall sand walls, completely trapping Yi Fei in this Sand King City. What a terrifying aura! This person's aura is as terrifying as Lin Tianjiao's. Yi Fei sized up the old man and his expression turned serious. Are you the North Sea Sword King Yi Fei, the 5th prodigy? The Sand King strode forward. The sand swirled in midair, and formed a sand chair for him to sit on. He looked down at Yi Fei. I am Yi Fei. Are you the leader of the bandits? Yi Fei was not afraid. He lifted his head and looked at the Sand King calmly. This calmness infuriated the surrounding bandit. Not only was Yi Fei not afraid of the Sand Bandit King, he even dared to speak so rudely? Kill him! It was unknown which commander roared, but the silent bandits all became agitated. Their eyes flashed with a green light, and they were like a pack of vicious wolves, glaring viciously at Yi Fei. They wanted nothing more than to tear him apart. Shut up! I don't like people shouting when I speak. Yi Fei also roared angrily. His roar was like thunder, causing the walls of quicksand to rumble violently. However, these walls did not collapse. After all, they were built by the Sand King to trap Yi Fei. The Sand King sat coldly on a chair made of quicksand and stared at Yi Fei. As expected of a prodigy. You are indeed arrogant and courageous. Yi Fei, you are the first person who dares to barge into my Shang city alone. Yi Fei, you're the first person to find an emperor's ring in the trash of Qizhen Pavilion. Yi Fei, you are a talent. I value talents the most. I'll give you a chance. Join my bandits and I'll adopt you. What do you think? Sha Wang looked at Yi Fei with admiration. When the bandits heard this, they were all shocked. Then, they all looked at Yi Fei with envy and jealousy. Sand King thinks so highly of this kid? He is indeed a prodigy from the northern region. Kid, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and kneel. Pledge your loyalty to the Sand King. This is your only chance to live. Of course, before you join us, you have to hand over the Emperor's ring and kill all the martial artists in Beiyang country as proof of your allegiance. The bandits all shouted. They looked like they had Yi Fei in their grasp. Yi Fei was speechless. Was the Sand King that strong? Were they so confident that he would surrender? Cut the crap. Let's fight. Yi Fei swept his feet. The quicksand under his feet suddenly turned into a steel curtain that flew forward. The commanders who were shouting all retreated in fear. After all, a person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. Yi Fei was the fifth prodigy. Just this title alone was enough to make the bandits extremely wary. They all retreated and looked at the Sand King on the sand chair. Sand King, this kid is arrogant and rude. Sand King, please attack him. Sigh, Yi Fei, why do you have to do this? I saw that you were a talent and could not bear to kill you. Unfortunately, you are not willing to work for me. In that case, I won't hold back. Kill. Just a moment ago, he was still sentimental and eager to help. But when he heard Yi Fei's rejection, the Sand King's expression changed again. Without any warning, he attacked Yi Fei viciously. A huge war hammer appeared in the Sand King's hand. It released an endless demonic aura and murderous aura. In the void, the faint cries of vengeful spirits could be heard. When they heard this sound, all the bandits retreated in fear. They did not dare to get close to this area. Yi Fei, I'll give you one last chance. Hand over the great Emperor's ring and I'll spare your life. The Sand King said coldly. The war hammer in his hand whistled toward Yi Fei with a chilling wind. I don't have the ring, but I do have your life. Since I am free, I will gladly accept it. Yi Fei suddenly charged into the sky against the wind. His fist whistled through the air, forming a fierce fist wind. It pierced forward like an invisible blade. With a whoosh, it tore a hole in the Sand King's wind. Taking advantage of this hole, Yi Fei squeezed through and was about to throw a punch at the Sand King. Shameless boasting. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Quicksand storm. The Sand King sneered. He did not even look at Yi Fei's fist. The sand chair he was sitting on suddenly collapsed, forming a hurricane that swept forward. Countless grains of sand were like steel balls. They made loud banging sounds as they rained down on Yi Fei. Seeing this, many of the bandits turned pale. If they were in Yi Fei's place, they would have been smashed to pieces. Old man, we will only know if I am bragging after we fight. Battle demon golden body, massacre fist intent. Yi Fei stepped into the air. His body emitted a blazing golden light. He was like an ancient battle demon walking in the air. Every punch he threw shook the void. When he kicked, the quicksand in the air exploded. Obviously, the Sand King's quicksand could not hurt Yi Fei. The Sand King's face darkened for the first time. He coldly raised the strange war hammer in his hand. Just as Yi Fei threw a punch, he smashed it forward. Heavenly demon strike. A chilly wind blew. The quicksand in the air was swept up by the chilly wind, forming a terrifying sand ball that weighed thousands of tons. It rumbled as it came crashing down. When Yi Fei's fist smashed into the sand ball, the golden light on his body dissipated. He could no longer hold on and could only retreat. At the same time, He threw a series of punches. Countless fist shadows bombarded the huge sand ball like black shooting stars. Finally, when Yi Fei's punching speed reached 1,000 punches per minute, the sand ball in front of him finally exploded. However, Yi Fei was shocked to discover that he had unknowingly been smashed to the edge of the quicksand wall by the Sand King's heavenly demon strike. There was no way he could retreat. North Sea Sword King? The fifth elite? Young man, you underestimate us, bandit. You can die too. The Sand King's cold, mocking smile appeared behind the shattered sand ball. At first, he had been concerned that Yi Fei had the Emperor's ring and that he might have some amazing tricks up his sleeve. That was why he had tried to recruit Yi Fei. However, after exchanging so many blows, seeing that Yi Fei didn't take out the ring even when he was forced into a corner, Sand King immediately understood that Yi Fei couldn't use the power of the great Emperor's ring. Chapter 606. The terrifying Sand King. Oh no, the Sand King really wants to kill us this time. He's going to use his full strength. Yi Fei retreated to the edge of the sand wall. When he saw that the Sand King had formed hundreds of sand balls and was about to throw them at him, Yi Fei knew that he could not afford to delay any longer. There were only two paths before him. He could either escape immediately or continue fighting the Sand King. However, he remembered that Zhu Zhen and the others had just escaped. Yi Fei gritted his teeth and decided to continue fighting. I have to buy enough time. Otherwise, given Zhu Zhen and the others' strength, they will definitely be wiped out if they encounter the bandits. This time I have to fight. Boom! The fist will dissipated and the dazzling sword radiance was released from Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei did not dare hesitate. He did not dare to be careless in the face of a veteran martial king like the Sand King. At the same time as he released his sword intent, a huge sword vortex spread out in all directions with Yi Fei as the center. Sword images were everywhere, and the entire world seemed to show signs of freezing under this vortex. This was the Heaven Sealing Sword, the strongest sword technique of the Taishan sacred ground. The Sand King, who was attacking, immediately felt that his attacks were becoming slower and weaker. A look of shock appeared on his face before it turned into a sinister smile. The Heaven Sealing Sword is indeed powerful. It's a pity that you are too weak. If the sword maniac had used it, I would have retreated. As for you, you are a joke. Destroy. The Sand King's body suddenly grew taller. His already muscular body became even more majestic. He was like an old desert giant, waving his war hammer and stirring up the sand. Hundreds of sand balls exploded at the same time. Like a meteor shower, they smashed forward. Yi Fei instantly felt that his heaven-sealing sword could no longer withstand this terrifying power. After all, this was the quicksand desert. After all, Sand King's cultivation level was much higher than Yi Fei's. The Sand King was an elder who was half a step into the martial sage realm. Compared to him, Yi Fei felt that he was still too weak. Boom! That huge sand ball smashed down, causing space to collapse. It was as if mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. The threat of death filled his heart. Yi Fei understood that if he did not use his full strength, he might really die here. Dazzling sword radiance was released from Yi Fei's body like a pillar of light. If he couldn't hold back, then he would fight with all his might. Even if I face a sage king, I may not lose. Under the tremendous pressure above his head, Yi Fei stretched out his hands and grabbed the black hole space above his head. Then, he swung it forward. The huge black hole suddenly turned into an incomparably huge black sword. In the process of the huge sword being swung, it suddenly burned with raging flames. The huge sword fire burned the sky red, and the resplendent sword light illuminated the land. Yi Fei didn't hold back. He used Annihilation Sword, bury the heavens, devour the heavens, and incinerate the heavens to slash at the huge ball of sand in the sky. Rumble! The sand ball quickly collided with the black greatsword in Yi Fei's hand and completely turned into a burning fireball. The terrifying high temperature burned the sand ball red and turned it into a string of flowing crystals. They fell to the ground with a clatter, forming the most primitive form of crystals. However, Yi Fei had used all his Emperor Sword techniques, but he still couldn't block Sand King's terrifying attack. After all, Yi Fei only had the fighting strength of an unrivaled martial king. On the other hand, Sand King had not only been an unrivaled martial king for many years, but he had also touched the realm of a sage king. The difference in their fighting strength was too great. Yi Fei's swordfire only lasted for about 10 breaths of time. Then, with a loud boom, Sand King's war hammer swung again. It smashed the ball of sand with enough force to shatter a mountain. The huge ball of sand suddenly accelerated and slammed into Yi Fei. Danger struck again. Yi Fei could only shout. His body emitted a golden light as he tore open the void with his bare hands. Yi Fei stepped into the void and executed the Great Void Step. He barely managed to avoid the huge ball of sand. In the end, the huge ball of sand was smashed into the ground by Sand King's warhammer, creating a huge pit that was a few hundred meters wide. 1/10 of Sand King City was completely destroyed by Sand King's attack. Countless bandits who couldn't dodge in time were killed. Yi Fei, how dare you dodge? Sand King was enraged. He had never expected that Yi Fei, who wasn't even an unrivaled martial king, would have so many tricks up his sleeves. He had actually managed to dodge his killing blow twice in a row. Sand King roared. In the void, a huge figure like a desert giant waved his war hammer and smashed forward. Pieces of the void shattered continuously. Many of the bandits were terrified and no longer dared to get close to the battlefield. Countless bandits ran out of the city in fear. The destructive power of Sand King's all-out attack was too shocking. Yi Fei, who had also dodged Sand King's attack twice in a row, struck fear into the hearts of the bandits. As expected of the North region's genius, the North Sea Sword King's strength is terrifying. So what if he's a genius? Sand King was also a genius when he was young. Now, he's about to comprehend the sage ruler path. No matter how strong Yi Fei is, he'll still die. The bandits discussed among themselves. They didn't forget to look up at Yi Fei and laugh coldly. At that moment, the battle between Yi Fei and Sand King had reached its climax. Faced with Sand King's terrifying battle strength, Yi Fei continuously executed the Great Void Steps to dodge. At the same time, he attacked continuously with his sword to counterattack. Rumble! Sword chi whistled everywhere. Yi Fei executed the Great Void Steps to dodge the war hammer and suddenly appeared behind Sand King. Dazzling sword light formed a belt of light that swept forward. Junior, you're courting death. Sand King didn't even turn his head. The war hammer in his hand suddenly began to spin in midair, forming a whirlwind that suddenly smashed towards Yi Fei's sword light. As expected, the sword light was instantly destroyed. At the same time, the space around Yi Fei was destroyed as well. Without the space, Yi Fei couldn't execute the Great Void Step. Junior, let's see where you can hide this time. Sand King sneered. It wasn't easy for him to seize this opportunity. He didn't hesitate. The huge war hammer exploded with boundless yin qi and demonic qi, enveloping Yi Fei fiercely. It also turned the space around Yi Fei into nothingness. Sky Ghost Hammer, die for this old man. You don't have the ability to kill me. Yi Fei's eyes flashed fiercely. Sand King's attack was indeed terrifying. His battle strength was on par with Lin Tianjiao's. But I'm not to be trifled with. Lin Tianjiao can't do anything to me. This old man can't do anything to me either. At the very least, he can't do anything to me now. Taboo armor, appear. Yi Fei's face was cold. After all, he had bought enough time. The bandits had already escaped from the city. There was no need for him to hide anymore. There was a flash of light and a charred armor appeared on Yi Fei's body. The moment he put on the armor, a strong conviction appeared in his heart. Chapter 607. Forbidden Power, the Forbidden Armor. This was the reason Yi Fei was so confident in facing the Sand King. He had taken this armor from the treasury of the Northern Ocean country. It was a forbidden sacred artifact that could only be used once. Back then, the Northern Heavenly King had solemnly told Yi Fei that once he put on this armor, only titled battle-pet warriors Wu Jun would be able to harm him. Otherwise, no one below Wu Jun's level would be able to harm him. Now that the Sand King had forced him into a corner and he didn't want to expose his Phoenix Blood Sword, Yi Fei immediately thought of using this armor to fend off the Sand King's attack. Yi Fei, go to hell! In the sky, Sand King's smug laughter could be heard. His gigantic war hammer smashed forward mercilessly like a mountain, destroying the sand wall behind Yi Fei and turning it into dust. In the past, Yi Fei wouldn't have dared to face such a terrifying attack head-on. But now, with a cold smile on his face, Yi Fei roared. With a loud rumble, he took a step forward and charged toward the Sand King's hammer. Is this guy crazy? Is he trying to die because he knows he can't beat the Sand King? Outside the city, a group of bandit commanders were shocked to see Yi Fei's performance. Then, they sneered and looked up, waiting for the moment when Yi Fei would be killed. Kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him! The bandits' excited and bloodthirsty cries could be heard everywhere. The Sand King's eyes glowed with a green light. His huge hammer was already smashing down on Yi Fei. Boom! Even an unrivaled martial king would be hammered to death on the spot. But Yi Fei's performance shocked everyone. The bandits widened their eyes. The Sand King couldn't believe his eyes. Yi Fei managed to block the attack. His iron fist collided with the Sand King's war hammer. Yi Fei did not retreat. His entire body was enveloped by the light of the taboo armor. A strange power filled his surroundings. By relying on this power, Yi Fei could clearly sense that the Sand King's attack had disappeared in an instant. It felt as if what had hit him wasn't a war hammer, but a ball of soft cotton. The forbidden armor is indeed powerful. Yi Fei's face flashed with joy. Since Sand King's attack was ineffective against him, he had nothing to be afraid of. His fist suddenly flashed with a terrifying sword light. The moment he blocked the hammer, Yi Fei raised his fist high. At the same time, a resplendent sword light filled his entire arm. Sky Destroyer sword, sword swallowing the heavens. Boom! The void shattered and a long crack appeared. Soon, this crack turned into a huge black sword light that slashed towards the sky. The sky cracked and the earth shook. The Sand King looked at this scene in shock. What's going on? How can this kid block my attack? He was the Sand King, a former genius. Now, he was the king of bandits. Yi Fei's actions had deeply hurt the Sand King's self-esteem. Sky Demon Hammer. The Sand King leaped high into the air and dodged Yi Fei's attack. The huge war hammer came down with a terrifying force that could shatter everything. The taboo armor once again released a strange black light. This black light was like an invisible shield, firmly protecting Yi Fei within it. It allowed Yi Fei to ignore the Sand King's attack and continue to swing his sword. If one sword light was not enough, he would use 2. If 2 sword lights were not enough, he would use 3, 4, 10. 10 swords swallowing the heavens. Rumble! The entire Sand King city shook. Yi Fei had completely given up on defense. What replaced it was an absolute attack. He attacked without holding back. A total of 10 sword lights tore through the sky and slashed forward. The Sand King's hand that was wielding the war hammer trembled. He roared and swung the war hammer to its limit. The quicksand on the ground gathered and formed balls of sand that smashed onto Yi Fei's body like meteors. Logically speaking, such an attack should have shattered even the strongest body. However, Yi Fei's body was not harmed at all. The taboo armor protected him perfectly. On the other hand, Yi Fei's 10 sky-swallowing forms slashed down on the Sand King's body at an extremely high frequency. 1 sword, 2 sword, 3 sword strikes. The Sand King was indeed a former genius. He was a super expert among the older generation. He swung his war hammer and shattered 5 of Yi Fei's sky-swallowing forms. Unfortunately, I have more than 5 sword shadows. Yi Fei smiled coldly. Rumble. Space continued to shatter as another 5 heaven-swallowing sword shadows whizzed down and landed on the Sand King's body. The Sand King's body rapidly shrank as he reverted to his old and hunchbacked state. Wah! The Sand King retreated frantically. He could not hide his shock and anger. His eyes turned green as he glared at Yi Fei. The taboo armor. You have such a treasure on you. No wonder you can block my attacks. But you still have to die. The taboo armor may be able to block attacks below Wu Jun's level, but it only lasts for 2 hours. As long as I can drag this out, I'll see what else you can do. The Sand King suddenly laughed. He smiled slyly. Recognizing that Yi Fei was protected by the taboo armor, he retreated decisively. He no longer fought with Yi Fei. Instead, he ordered the thousands of bandits nearby, pass down my orders. Set up the quicksand formation and trap this little bastard. After 2 hours, when the taboo armor is activated, I'll come and take his life. Yes, long live the Sand King. Hearing the Sand King's orders, the nearby bandits all took out their sandworm bugles and blew into them. The sound of the bugles caused a storm of quicksand in the distance. The sandstorm grew stronger and stronger until it covered the sky. It seemed to want to destroy Yi Fei and the entire Sand King city. This was the quicksand trap. The bandits had used millions of sandworms to create the ultimate trap. Right now, Yi Fei only had 2 options. He could either escape or find a way to destroy this terrifying sandstorm. But Yi Fei did not choose either option. He knew that if the Sand King delayed him for 2 hours, he would lose the taboo armor. Then he would definitely die. If I want to win, there's only one way. Kill the Sand King. No matter the cost, this taboo armor can still protect me. Kill. Kill the Apotheosis Realm Empty Fist. Kaboom! The beast mark on Yi Fei's body suddenly glowed. A desolate, cold, and ancient aura suddenly appeared on his body. Like an ancient person awakening, Yi Fei stood in the sky. With a burning heart and a will to die, he launched his final punch. At this moment, the world lost its light. At this moment, the quicksand also lost its deterrence. At this moment, the sly Sand King seemed to have discovered something terrifying. He shouted in disbelief. How is this possible? What kind of fist technique is that? It gives me the feeling of death. Sky Demon Hammer, burn your blood essence. The Sand King roared. He could feel the terror of Yi Fei's punch. He was so anxious that he even burned his blood essence. His blood essence roared like a dragon, shaking the void. Chapter 608. Quicksand Treasury. This time, the Sand King used all his strength. He didn't dare to hold back at all. Under the pressure of the war hammer, half of Shang City was turned into ruins. Yi Fei sneered. So what if you attack fiercely? I have the taboo armor and the void fist. If you can't kill me in 2 hours, I'll kill you. Blood essence, burn for me. Seeing that the Sand King was going all out, Yi Fei also began to burn his blood essence. The crimson flames were like a raging tiger or a violent dragon. As Yi Fei burned his blood essence, it suddenly transformed into a terrifying phantom that was neither a dragon nor a beast. It merged with the void fist. At this moment, Yi Fei's essence, energy, and spirit had reached their peak state. Under Sand King's horrified and incredulous gaze, the Void Realm fist completely ignored his attack and defense. With a boom, it smashed into the Sand King's body. Bam! The sandworms in the sky were shocked. They instinctively felt the ancient and terrifying aura of the Void Fist. After all, this was a suicidal fist technique created by the ancestors of the human race to kill the beast race great emperor. Each of Yi Fei's punches brought fear and pressure to the vicious beast's souls. With a boom, as Yi Fei's Void Fist moved, the sandworms in the sky all instinctively felt fear and fled in all directions. In the sky, Sand King's pained cries could be heard. The heavy war hammer fell to the ground. Sand King looked at the huge bloody hole in his chest in disbelief. Then, he looked at Yi Fei with fear in his eyes. With great difficulty, he shouted, "Ancient fist technique, you are the beast mark inheritance." Before he could finish, the Sand King couldn't hold on any longer. His body was swept up by the raging sandstorm. No one knew if he was dead or alive. However, the sandstorm didn't dare to approach Yi Fei. The sandworms inside were all frightened by the ancient aura of the Void Fist. Many of the bandits watched in disbelief. After the huge sandstorm swallowed the Sand King, it quickly fled from Yi Fei. Finally, it formed a huge sand vortex that quickly drilled into the ground and disappeared. The bandits were all shocked. What's going on? Where's the Sand King? Was he swallowed by the sandworms? Oh my God! Even the Sand King wasn't a match for the North Sea Sword King? Are you waiting for your death? Run! Who dares to stand in my way? Seeing the strongest Sand King get killed by a single punch from Yi Fei, all the bandits present hated the fact that they only had 2 more legs. They all ran as far as they could, afraid that Yi Fei would target them and kill them. Therefore, in just a few breaths of time after Sand King died, thousands of bandits fled. Not a single one of them was willing to fight to the death for Sand King. Yi Fei also secretly shook his head. This group of bandits is indeed a motley crew. However, this bandit king is indeed formidable. As he spoke, Yi Fei lowered his head and looked at the tattered forbidden armor on his body. The forbidden armor was supposed to last for 2 hours. However, in the face of Sand King's final attack, the forbidden armor was unable to withstand it and was instantly shattered. If not for the fact that the Void Fist can ignore attack and defense and hit the opponent 100% of the time, and that the forbidden armor can reduce the damage, I would have been dead. While I was seriously injuring the Sand King, I might have been smashed into a pulp by him. A hint of fear flashed across Yi Fei's face. Just as all the bandits had fled, his body could no longer hold on. When Yi Fei landed on the ground, he couldn't help but spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. These were the accumulated injuries from his battle with the Sand King. It was obvious how difficult it was to kill a prodigy, even if the prodigy was a has-been. Squeak! Seeing that Yi Fei was injured, Xiao Chao ran out of the beast mark. She was about to bite her finger and help Yi Fei heal. She was, after all, a Lingji doll. Every drop of her blood was precious, comparable to a spiritual medicine. Seeing this, Yi Fei sternly stopped Xiao Cao's actions and said with a sullen face, "Xiao Cao, if you hurt yourself like this again, I don't want you anymore." "Don't worry, I'm fine." Xiao Cao lowered her head, feeling wronged. However, she was also very happy that she was concerned about Yi Fei. Then, Xiao Cao hurriedly pointed in a direction and made a few gestures in a row. "Xiao Cao, are you saying that you found a lot of treasures?" Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He slapped his head and remembered that this was the bandits' lair. There was even a master like the Sand King guarding it. Now that the bandits had all fled, wasn't this the best time to loot? "Xiao Cao, lead the way." Yi Fei was excited. He suddenly forgot that he was still injured. Xiao Cao also looked like a miser and made a gesture to ask for a hug. Yi Fei carried Xiao Cao and rushed into the ruins of the Sand King city as fast as he could. 6 hours later, Yi Fei finally found the entrance where the bandits had hidden their treasures. He also realized how cunning the bandits were. In the Sand King city, the bandits had prepared more than a dozen treasure locations. However, they were all trapped. Anyone who entered would die. The real treasure trove of the bandits was actually mobile. It kept drifting in the desert with the quicksand. Other than the Sand King, no one would know the real location of this quicksand treasure trove. Unfortunately, although the bandits were smart, they were no match for Yi Fei, who had a spiritual creature like Xiao Chao by his side. Xiao Chao could sense where there was spiritual energy even with his eyes closed. Therefore, after 6 hours, Yi Fei successfully entered this special treasure trove made of quicksand. The treasures in the treasure trove gave Yi Fei a shock. He thought that the bandits in the desert were all poor. However, when he actually entered the treasure trove, Yi Fei realized what it meant to be filthy rich. When he walked in, Yi Fei suddenly felt like he had entered the Northern Ocean Kingdom's national treasury. However, the treasures in the Northern Ocean Kingdom's national treasury were all mixed up. To find a good treasure, one had to rely on luck. However, the quicksand treasure trove of the bandits was different. To be able to be stored in such a secretive place, all of the treasures were of high quality. The ground was littered with weapons made from supreme-grade treasures. Yi Fei saw a total of 10 saint artifact embryos. Among them, there was a saint artifact embryo formed from a green sword. Yi Fei was very satisfied. The sword's name was Green Demon. The origins of the Green Demon's sword were engraved on it. It turned out that the Green Demon's sword was made from the hardest teeth of an ancient poisonous insect called the Green Demon. The Green Demon's sword was naturally poisonous. It could corrode the opponent's protective quintessential essence, causing severe damage. It was considered an extremely insidious saint artifact embryo. It was also the previous Sand King's personal weapon. Yi Fei finally understood why there were so many saint artifact embryos in the treasure trove. It turned out that these were the weapons used by the previous Sand Kings. Although this Green Demon sword is a little insidious, it's a pretty good backup weapon when it's inconvenient for me to reveal the Phoenix Blood Sword. Yi Fei stroked the Green Demon's sword as a look of fondness flashed in his eyes. Sensing the terrifying aura that was faintly slumbering in Yi Fei's body, the Green Demon's sword did the same as the Phoenix Blood Sword. Without Yi Fei needing to do anything, it immediately emitted a gentle green light that enveloped Yi Fei. It emitted an ingratiating aura. Only then did the undying sword's soul go back to sleep in satisfaction. It couldn't be bothered with these small demon swords. This left Yi Fei a little speechless. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.